Hello and welcome to World News Tonight. I'm Maciej Mikos.
And I'm Marie Caso. Let's take a look at the headlines.
European leaders gathered in Brussels to discuss further steps in support for Ukraine.
The European Council seems no closer to coming up with a solution to the migration problem.
A satellite monitoring Belarus has spotted the alleged new Wagner Group base. EU leaders gathered in Brussels for the latest round of talks. The agenda included, alongside other topics, discussions of further steps regarding the war in Ukraine.
The assembled heads of state expressed their continued solidarity with the Ukrainian nation and declared further help.
EU leaders were expected to discuss the security situation in Russia and the recent events involving the Wagner Group as they gathered for the EU Council in Brussels. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas reaffirmed the unchanged position of the European Union regarding continued aid for the Ukrainian nation.
We had a very good discussion and also about Wagner Group and the state in Russia, but the overall conclusion was that it doesn't change our approach. We have to help Ukraine more.
In light of recent events in Russia and the threat they pose to Europe, the agenda for the talks also included discussions on shoring up the security of member states. The EU will bolster its own security posture as well as further develop the region's defence industry.
We are making a stronger commitment to increasing our own security, our own defence capability, including moving more towards our European defence industry.
The recent events in Russia were also discussed. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo said that the EU had no intention of interfering in internal affairs of the Russian Federation.
What we have seen over the past weekend obviously is an internal Russian affair, and it's something that we don't intervene. But it can only motivate us to continue our support to Ukraine.
The EU and its member states will continue to support Ukraine's economy, society, armed forces and future reconstruction, and have so far provided more than 77 billion euros to the country. In addition, in order to support displaced persons in Ukraine and across the European Union, the EU will be providing flexible financial assistance.
We'll be talking more about Ukraine's war losses and the ways of protecting cultural heritage sites in our interview with Michał Michalski from the Polonica National Institute of Polish Cultural Heritage Abroad, right after the news. And staying on the European Council summit, we move on to a contentious topic. Poland and Hungary still strongly oppose the obligatory migrant relocation scheme.
Both countries argue that welcoming thousands of migrants from Africa and the Middle East is a threat to the security of European countries.
Poland also argues that it has already received millions of Ukrainian war refugees and hence should be excluded from the relocation program.
The conclusions of the EU Council summit have stalled due to Hungary and Poland refusing to budge on the issue of African migrants. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki says his position has always been very clear.
The European Council took decision, adopted conclusions in June 2018. Those conclusions were absolutely clear. There is no compulsory distribution of illegal migrants, and all the process has to be based on a voluntary basis. And we stick to those conclusions.
The scheme assumes that EU countries would welcome a set number of migrants or pay a fine of up to 20,000 euro per person. For Warsaw and Budapest, this is totally unacceptable.
Especially Hungary was totally adamant, saying, I will not vote for any conclusions at all. Okay. We don't want to see any conclusions. So it was not about let's do it this way or the other way. It was like we don't want to see the migration being mentioned at all.
While Hungary and Poland are against the project, the vetoes of the summit's conclusions cannot stop the scheme itself from going forward. The deal was already approved last month.
I don't think the pact is going to be affected. It's rather the conclusions that we have here. The discussion is about the internal dimension as well as the external dimension. We have to focus on how to really decrease the migration pressure.
While the discussions continue in Brussels, southern European countries like Greece, Italy or Spain are overburdened with thousands of illegal migrants from Africa. They are often exploited by human traffickers who put their lives at risk for easy profit. Polish officials say they wish to conduct a referendum on the EU Council deal. The vote could take place close to the parliamentary elections in October.
A new military camp has been spotted by a satellite monitoring Belarus.
This might be the new base of operations for Yevgeny Prigozhin's Wagner Group after he sealed the deal to relocate his troops to Belarus following their failed mutiny in Russia.
The new military installation, located 21 kilometers from the Belarusian capital, might be the new headquarters of the Wagner Group soldiers. It has yet to be confirmed whether the camp is housing Prigozhin's troops. Nevertheless, Alexander Lukashenko has already commented on their relocation.
People do not understand that our approach is a pragmatic one. Their commanders might come to us and help us by sharing their frontline experiences. Their assault units will tell us what's important on the battlefield now. They will tell us about weapons, which ones worked, which ones didn't.
The new military base could house up to 8,000 Wagner soldiers, although the Kremlin says the number of soldiers that will be relocated to Belarus is unknown. It's clear that Moscow will cut the group's funding in the wake of the failed mutiny.
The PMC is quickly deprived of billions of dollars in state funding. Other power groups claim this money. Some of the Wagner members are being contracted by the Russian Ministry of Defense, some by the Rosgvardia, and some are trying to return to Africa, where there are already attempts to nationalize Wagner's assets as well.
Moreover, Kiev's allies are keeping an eye on the Wagner's group's every move, in Europe and elsewhere.
We continue to closely track Wagner's activities both in Ukraine and in Africa and in wherever in the world they may operate.
The failed mutiny could lead to a shift in the Wagner's group leadership. According to Russian independent media outlet The Bell, Putin's banker Yuri Kovalchuk may be in the line to take the reins. One consequence of Wagner's relocation to Belarus is obvious. The troops' presence will reignite tension over the safety of Ukraine's northern border.
Former US Vice President Mike Pence has made a surprise visit to Kyiv to meet with the Ukrainian president.
This is the first time that a Republican presidential candidate has visited Ukraine since Russia's invasion.
Mike Pence seems to be turning his words of support for Ukraine into actions. This visit is meant to prove that, and not just by laying reefs in Kyiv and taking photos of President Zelensky. He also had this to say.
We need to make sure that we provide the Ukrainian military what they need to push back on and defeat Russian aggression here, because it will make it clear to Russia, to China, and to any other nations in the world that would seek to redraw international lines by force.
Pence is standing out from many other Republican hopefuls and lawmakers who have not been as vocal in their support for Ukraine. Ron DeSantis, for example, had come under fire some time ago for saying the following.
While the US has many vital national interests, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them.
He has since gone back on those words, but they seem to be a confirmation of a sentiment shared among Republicans. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy had rebuffed the US Senate's plan to pass more aid for Ukraine, which put him at odds with some notable Republicans and, of course, much of the Biden administration. The United States is the biggest supplier of arms to Ukraine. It has invested over $40 billion into Ukraine's defense. The subject of further aid for Ukraine is creeping into discourse surrounding the 2024 presidential elections. Sooner or later, most Republican candidates will have to have a clear-cut position on this issue.
Poland's internal security agency has detained another alleged spy.
It's the 14th person suspected of being a part of a spy network in Poland. The detainee is a professional hockey player from a First League club.
The suspect was arrested on charges of espionage in the Polish region of Silesia in the south of the country, but security services didn't specify where exactly.
He is a Russian national, a professional athlete who has been in Poland since October 2021. A hockey player of the First League team in Poland, he had a stable and comfortable life in Poland.
The man was detained on June 11th, but security services only released the news this Friday. The Russian national is the 14th person in this investigation accused of spying for the Kremlin in Poland. Law enforcement said that the suspect did not fall prey to a deception operation and performed his task of his own volition.
He knew what he was doing, that he was working for Russian intelligence.
The man's efforts have been documented by investigators working his case.
The man collected information, including multimedia material from these locations, and forwarded it to Russian intelligence on an ongoing basis, for which he received payment.
According to Polish press agency findings, The network that the suspect was a part was tasked with monitoring railways, spreading anti-NATO, anti-Polish, and anti-government propaganda. The investigators also said that the operatives were likely preparing acts of sabotage. The Internal Security Agency is keeping the investigation open and saying that more arrests might be coming in the future.
You're watching World News Tonight. Coming up next.
France mobilizes tens of thousands of police in the wake of protests.
And Greek organizations continue to demand war reparations from Germany. France has mobilized tens of thousands of police officers in response to violent protests that have erupted following the killing of a teenager by the police.
The French government has outlined a response to the crisis, including urging the most vulnerable to stay at home.
Last night, France was set ablaze. Tens of thousands of protesters and rioters took to the streets. Thousands of violent incidents were reported across the country, and close to 900 people were arrested. In response to the violence and unrest, many French regions have decided to impose curfews. Some cities, like Marseille, have even banned public demonstrations. Emergency services are working hard trying to clean up the aftermath of the protests. The extent of the material damages is yet to be assessed.
Violence solves nothing. It is unacceptable, it is inexcusable. The death of a 17-year-old man is a tragedy, but only justice can be the answer.
The situation has forced the French president to leave the European Council summit early. He later convened a special crisis meeting to address the issue.
In the next hours we will take further measures, and we have already started taking them, for example in coordination with social media platforms to remove the most sensitive content.
Prior to the riots, a series of much more peaceful demonstrations took place. They were led by the mother of the killed teenager. Many people are still paying their respects at the site where Nahel was shot, commemorating him and his life in a much less violent way.
Since the parliamentary elections in Greece are now done with, various Greek organizations are once again bringing up the issue of war reparations from Germany.
Greece, like Poland, is demanding billions of euros from Berlin for all the destruction the country sustained in the Second World War.
Both Greece and Poland are demanding war reparations from Germany for the Second World War. But the two cases have some differences between them.
First of all, for our Holocausts, for our victims, for the soul of our parents, of our victims, and also the infrastructure, because the Germans, during the German occupations, they destroyed over 70% of our infrastructure.
Despite the demands of the Greek government, Berlin says the matter is closed and had been resolved with the Moscow 2+4 Treaty of 1990. But according to the agreement made in London just after the war, the matter of reparations for Greece was to be included in a peace treaty. And here is where Berlin is sending mixed signals.
German government supported between 1990 and 2013 that Moscow Treaty is not a peace treaty. Suddenly,
how are you doing?
In 2013,
I haven't slept at all.
Without anything happens, they decided, they said that, oh no, finally, Moscow Treaty is a peace treaty, but does not mention something about reparations and compensation. So the issue
Cygnus,
has been
I did not
closed.
see.
Several
Need to
NGOs
see
are
that.
trying their best to bring justice to the victims of the brutal
Maybe?
German occupation.
Maybe
But
like
the new
actually,
democracy
ironically.
government, which recently won
That was some
re-election,
weird
is not so eager to take concrete action.
They are afraid.
Physical reaction to speaking on a camera.
The right moment to raise the issue with,
No.
with the Germans. Well, after 77
Haven't
years,
slept
we
at all.
finally
You
think,
slept a decent amount of
the
time.
non-governmental organizations
Shit,
that are
I'm
dealing
jealous. I'm
with
jealous.
This, we're trying to convince
I went
the
to sleep
Greek
on time.
government that they should
That sucks too.
follow,
I went to sleep properly, and then I woke up in like 1 in the morning with the worst stomach pains ever. Couldn't fall asleep until like 4.
Greece is demanding close to 300 billion euro from Germany for the destruction of nearly 70% of the country's
Wanted to
infrastructure,
start stream at
the
7,
theft of
and then
thousands
I
of
actually
cultural
took a nap
artifacts, and the murder of
because I
tens of
wasn't able
thousands
to
of
function.
innocent civilians. The ball is now in Germany's court.
Świnoujście is the only Polish town that lies on as many as 44 islands, of which only 3 are inhabited.
The town, sitting on the border with Germany, now has a tunnel under the river Świnia, eliminating the need to use ferries to get from one part of the town to another.
Italians have no cash to give you.
On the Polish side of the border, Germany will also benefit from it, particularly Brandenburg and Berlin.
It's only 1.5 kilometers long,
Italians
but
are
it makes life in
fucking poor. What you gonna
Świnoujście
take
much
from them?
simpler. Until now, residents and tourists needed to get on a ferry in order to get to the other bank. This would often cause long lines and delays. Now, driving through the tunnel will only take about 2 minutes. The tunnel has a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour.
Football clubs from Saudi
Actually,
Arabia
cool.
are on a
Football.
transfer offensive, signing player after
Sleep
player
schedule,
from
same.
top European
I feel ya.
leagues.
The
Actually,
Saudi
I'm
teams are
tempted to
enticing
fix
European
mine,
stars
and
with
then it failed.
multi-million-dollar contracts.
So I'm attempting to do it today again. I'm kind of hyped
After
about
last
going to
year's
sleep,
big arrival
like
of
relatively
the
early.
living football legend Cristiano Ronaldo to
The
Al
whole country
Nassr,
of Italy reached
Saudi
into their
clubs are
pockets
now
and
trying
mods
to
flew
lure
out.
in
Yeah.
even more European stars.
We want reparations from Italy, and Italy
The
is there
latest
crying
players
in the
to
corner.
accept the offer are Marcelo Brozovic from Inter Milan and Roberto Firmino from Liverpool. They will join other
Starts
European
at
stars
8
like
in
Karim
the evening,
Benzema
ends at
and
1.
N'Golo Kante.
Okay,
Ruben
that's like
Neves,
there 5
Kalidou
hours, right?
Koulibaly or Edouard Mendy.
Is that
Just a
okay?
year ago, transfers of such big names to Saudi Arabia would be
Lasting a
unimaginable.
day more on
Now
coffee,
it is a
but
way for
fail every time
European
I fall
stars to
asleep.
earn a lot of money very quickly. It
Is
seems
that
that
the
the
most
Saudi
productive
sheiks
way
with
to
their
fix it?
pockets full of petrodollars finally realized they
Wait,
don't
could
have
you
to
do a
purchase
thing?
entire European clubs, but can rather sign individual players.
But I
We
got
just
used to
have
this
wait and
before,
see
so I
how
don't
many
know
of the
how
top European teams can
easy
keep
that
their
is
best
for
athletes
others.
at the end of the transfer
But you know the
window.
thing where like you
Sometimes
use your
money
bed
is
for
simply
sleeping
bigger than
only.
football.
So like you go lay in bed
Now, I
and
guess
you're
this
gonna get
evening is,
sleepy
Michał
automatically.
Michalski of the National Institute of Polish
Because I just do
Cultural
that, to be
Heritage
honest. For
abroad,
me, it's like
founded in
relatively easy. If I
2017
wanted to go
by
to
the
sleep
Polish
at like
Minister of Culture and
4 in
National
the evening,
Heritage.
I probably could.
As we observe
I would just go
the
to bed at
events
4 in
of
the
the war
evening
in
and I would
Ukraine,
fucking
we
fall
often
asleep.
overlook alongside the everyday tragedies, Ukraine's cultural
20 minutes,
heritage
holy
is also
shit.
being
I tried
destroyed,
that
and
this
that
morning.
too often requires action and
I tried
vision.
to take a power
Ukraine's
nap,
cultural heritage
so I put
also
my
includes
alarm
Polish
in
heritage.
20 minutes.
So, Mr. Michalski,
I think it was
how about
25
we
actually.
begin with our first question,
But I
which
put
is,
my alarm,
what does the National Institute of
went to
Polish
sleep,
Heritage abroad
woke up,
do? It is a
heard the
relatively
alarm,
new
got annoyed.
institution.
Did I?
Good afternoon.
What's the word? Moved it another 25 minutes.
Yes, we
Did
are
that like 3
quite
times.
a young institution established by the Ministry of Culture and the National Heritage in December.
Start drinking coffee only when you can't stay awake anymore. The thing is though, wait, I want to listen to this. But coffee becomes less effective the more you use it.
So I will refer to the Institute Polonica. Our 3 main goals are to documentation of the Polish cultural heritage abroad,
Okay.
Implementation of restoration projects regarding to special valuable monuments abroad, and dissemination and popularization of this issue. To the various segments of the society. I mean, not only to the adults, but also we have a
Man, I thought we're
special
getting Sweden
offer
in soon, to be honest.
kids.
But now with the
schools,
Quran burning thing
and so on.
and
Not only in
Turkish
Poland,
reaction,
but
it
also in
seems
Polish
it's not going to happen so fast.
diaspora abroad. In terms of
You're drinking on the way. You're gonna be having a party or something?
modern geopolitical
Oi, what?
strategical
You're gonna be partying for the weekend?
Ukraine
I'm
is
so
our
jealous.
most
Nice.
important partner.
Oh, nice. No? You're just gonna be
not only
drinking?
because of
No party, just drunk.
amount of
Oh shit, man, I was so
objects
happy
of,
for you.
cultural heritage. We would like to
Drinking
refer
alone?
us to common heritage. common
Whiskey
heritage
drinking
of
alone,
Poland
but
and
whiskey is
Ukraine.
relatively expensive, isn't
But
it?
also,
So I guess it's
strategic dimension is also important.
it's not a
So,
depresso drinking. It's like
well,
enjoying
for more than
drinks
5
drinking,
years,
which is okay.
We have been conducted lots of
Must
restoration
listen the concept of being an
projects.
alcoholic,
I
bro.
guess this is, in some sense, the most important of our work.
Look.
And of course, it is also perceived as the most
I'm
important
pretty sure
for the publicity.
I am still not alcoholic for the sole reason of
large restoration
not getting my paycheck yet, but stopping all my online work in order to do, you know, the IRL job. So right now I'm penniless, I'm moneyless, I'm poor as fuck.
Which are these exactly in Ukraine?
Dude, if I had cash, holy shit, I need so many beers. You can't even imagine. You know what I need to do? For my first paycheck, you know what I'm gonna get? One of those like little fridges. And then it's just gonna be here next to my PC, and when I stream, I'm just gonna be grabbing beers from that shit.
So Lvov is our main goal in Ukraine. But we are also present in 15, 17 places a year, not only in
if I don't buy it now, I won't be able to buy any whiskey for the rest of the weekend.
Let's
Why?
say in Kamieniec-Podolski, famous historical city.
Wait, weekend. Today is Saturday, so like do your stores not work
very important
on Sunday and half a Saturday? You know, that's how it used to be in Yugoslavia.
Very also, it is one of the
I wish it was like that right now.
Historical cities in Ukraine. So I guess it is about a dozen and a half of places a year.
And for those of us who perhaps aren't so well rehearsed with like what conservation work actually looks like, can you tell us a little bit more about the technicalities of what you actually do?
Wait, when it comes to Ukraine getting into NATO, yeah, it is a silly fucking thing to expect, and it reminds me of like also people making the whole chaos about Ukraine threatening to join NATO. The whole thing with like, oh yeah, NATO refused Ukraine in 2008, but they told them they're going to join later. So obviously NATO would have allowed them in soon. But do you think Hungary would have complied? You think Turkey would have complied? What in the universe makes you think either of these countries in either of last years was like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to allow Ukraine to get into NATO. No, the fuck they wouldn't. They would not do that at all. There was absolutely no fear of Ukraine getting anywhere close to NATO. Even now the situation is horrible, and we saw the effect of them not being in NATO. Opinion in Sweden to negotiate bilateral agreements with US, UK and our neighbors, then withdraw our NATO application and then use our European Union veto to fuck over Turkey and Hungary at every opportunity, based on they deserve to be fucked over. I mean, Hungary does nothing good anyways. Turkey, okay, Turkey, I don't know how you could fuck over Turkey that much. Indirectly you could. Also should. But like Hungary is right there in European Union. Yeah, just fuck them in the ass. They've been horrible. They're making some horrible fucking decisions lately. They refused to allow a European Union grant to Ukraine just recently, for basically no reason. What's his name? What's his stupid ass name? Orban. Orban has said he's not gonna give more cash money to Ukraine before he knows where the previous money went to. As if you can't, what? Like we have really, really good, what's the word? Observations of where the funds go. NATO itself is tracking where the weapons go, where the aid goes, where the cash money goes. Ukraine itself knows that it's really, really important not to do anything sus with all of this because, you know, obviously the existence of the whole country depends on this. It's such a stupid little thing to even pretend that they would be stealing anything, and then he just goes and says it in European Parliament. He pisses me off. Hey, yeah, Elon! I haven't slept at all, so I'm just dying. I'm trying my best. I am trying my best. Kim.com, do I... Oh shit, it's the chubby one. You know, for a while they called him Fatnik. I think we talked about this one on the last stream, right? This video pisses me off. The reactions to the video piss me off, and then the video also pisses me off. Everything just makes me angry over this. Cause like the dudes being like, oh yeah, this is how fit these young people are, compare that to what you see in America's youth, fucking making me angry. The ugly women, fucking making me angry. These people have never watched How I Met Your Mother, and they have never heard of the cheerleader effect, and they should. Because this is embarrassing. The comments here are fucking embarrassing, okay? No. But yeah, I fucking hate them. Shit, my phone's ringing. Give me a second. Also, I saved this one to watch today, so we'll have to go through that. But give me a sec.
Hello and welcome to TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. On one of his recent shows, Vladimir Solovyov spoke with the commander of the 19th Motor Rifle Division, Major General Roman Vyazovsky.
Back.
We definitely think you should take a listen.
I gotta bring some rakia to the store. Where's my camera? Oh. Wait, I messed up my camera. But I'm gonna play you this.
Командир 19-й мотострелковой дивизии генерал-майор Роман Юрьевич Вязовский. Но вы себя чувствуете генералом больше наступа или генералом, знаешь, как Ртищев с Суворовым беседует? Ну, понятно. Да, и Суворов говорит, а что такое ретриат? Он говорит, не могу знать. Как? Мой лучший генерал не знает. Я, говорит, суворовский генерал, я отступать не приучен.
Но отступать это точно мы не приучены, это 100%. Я со своей базой Мариуполь брал.
Wait, podcast? PBD and former American general discussing the war? No. I don't know who that is. Who is PBD? Who is PBD? But no, I haven't. I would actually love to see it. Sounds interesting. Who? I need help. I need help. I need assistance.
Конечно. Чего есть 100%. Любовство есть. Ну, это за Мариуполь. Это когда еще мы начали на этапе брали. Сейчас пока не заработал. Вот я пихаю, подписываю пачками для полков, для дивизии. Правильно. Пачками прям подписываю там. Ну, по командирам дивизии выше-то отдельный разговор.
То есть главное взять медаль за взятие Киева. Вот ее получится.
Им сначала надо утвердить.
Patrick Bet David? Who the fuck is that? One of the most based podcasters out there? Oh, I genuinely have no idea who that is. Like, genuinely, I've got no idea who that is. Oh shit, that's cringe. Patrick Bet David? Let me check. No. Agencies, media company. Oh, so it's basically like, what's the dude's name? Joe Rogan, but not really. That's the dude? I guess. Russia is fighting for conservative values. What, really? Oh, what an idiot. That's not really making me feel like he's too smart, to be honest. But yeah, we could watch the podcast. We could watch the podcast. We could see what it's about. Let me see. At least 3 sectors of the front line. We got counteroffensive operations based. Advancing in varying degrees of success based. Zaluzhny said Ukrainian forces continue to advance in eastern and southern Ukraine despite lacking essential resources. Also based, Zaluzhny was really, really good on this. Zaluzhny is quite angry over reactions of many of our supposed allies to the situation. So I don't know, I'm kind of happy about his takes on this, to be completely honest. Douglas played a major role in the bombing of Yugoslavia and Iraq in the 90s. Would be interesting to see it. We could actually go through the podcast. I'm now interested. The dude doesn't seem too promising, to be fair, but the podcast guest seems a bit more interesting. Reacting disproportionately to the Russian military's failure to drive a small Ukrainian force from East Bank, Kherson Oblast. 70 personnel. Okay, so now they managed to push these 70 personnel out, or? No, they're just angry of it? Oh, failure to drive a small Ukrainian force. So what? What the fuck? So there's like 70 Ukrainians on the left bank of Kherson, and the Russians can't push it out, and this is making all the male bloggers pissed off. That's what's going on. Okay. Severe male blogger response to the Russian military command's decision-making demonstrates Russian male bloggers have not rallied around the Russian military command in the aftermath of Wagner's armed rebellion. Douglas is a dick? Oh, Tito sexual? I know, right? I know. I have a huge Tito book I could show you, but my camera is glitching out for some reason right now, so I'm gonna try to fix it. Oh, this is so cringe. Did they do auto-generated? Yeah. Oh, this dude! From which clip do I know the dude? From which clip do I know the dude? Who is that? Didn't he have something?
So if you're somebody that's wondering what's still going on with Ukraine and Russia, or even the...
Shut the fuck up, I need to make you louder first. Josip Broz Tito, the former president and revolutionary of Yugoslavia, who was also a war criminal, by the way, so that's important. I always gotta mention that. He was a war criminal. So glorifying that man to the point of absurdity really isn't that smart. I just think it's kind of funny to meme on him. Don't be too delusional though on how much you like the man, because he was kind of sus. And do I do this? Can I do this? Who the fuck knows? Let me just play this. Sucking Russian dick ever since he retired. Shit.
Wagner group that recently created some ruckus in Russia, as well as the military-industrial complex. We have the right guest here for you today. Douglas Macgregor, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a retired Army colonel and government official and author, consultant, and television commentator. I believe you've written 5 books. The most recent one, Margin of Victory, 5 battles that changed the face of modern war. He played a significant role in the battlefield in the Gulf War, and in 1999,
like, I see the camera and everything
NATO
as if it's working, but it's
not.
not.
His 1997 book, Breaking the Phalanx, established him as an influential, if unconventional, theorist and military strategist. His thinking contributed to the U.S. strategy in his 2003 invasion of Iraq. After leaving the military in 2004, he became more politically active. In 2020, President Donald Trump proposed Macgregor as ambassador to Germany, but the Senate blocked the nomination. On November 11, 2020, a Pentagon spokesperson announced that Macgregor had been hired to serve as senior advisor to the acting Secretary of Defense, a post he held less than 3 months. Trump also controversially appointed him to the board of West Point Academy, his alma mater. He is loved by many, but he is hated both by the left and the right. Some would say the establishment. He's also the EVP of Burke McGregor Group, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
so
I've
why
got
are
no
you
idea.
pissing so many people off? What's wrong? What's going on there?
Gee, I thought I was popular.
No,
it's really shattering to me.
You're popular, but some people are sitting there saying, why is this guy got these weird opinions and strange opinions?
Well, anybody that Washington likes these days is suspect inside the United States. Let's put it that way. So I'm happy to be unpopular inside the Beltway.
So it's almost like a compliment nowadays.
I think it's a tribute. Yeah.
So
Shut the fuck up.
We got a lot of things I want to go through with you on today's podcast. Obviously, your background. Your expertise, man. You're getting
He traveled to
calls
Tate's house
from
in
people
Romania.
asking, how do we handle this issue here in Iraq? How do we?
Wait, he traveled to Tate's house in Romania to do a 3-hour interview with Tate and sucked his dick the entire time. Was that like a recent thing? Where's Tate now? Is Tate at his house?
What?
Is he like, is still there? Just like kept there? What the fuck is going on with him? Oh, Tristan Tate. And then look at these interviews, holy shit. I don't know, my dude, there's something, I'm not really too, like I haven't seen an interview of this dude, okay, so we're gonna watch this before making any strong claims, okay? But if you're the type of person to interview Tate and then fucking Jordan Peterson and then you try to comment on geopolitics, I'm not really trusting your takes on a lot of things, you know? It seems like he's just choosing to kinda, you know, hang around with trash. So I don't really know how much I trust him.
Know that, and you're given the most unique perspective.
I'm not gonna watch
where
with an open
everybody
mind,
else is
dude.
saying the
He's
same
speaking
thing.
to
You're
trash
given
people.
something else. One has to pay attention to your strategy.
Like, this is an individual.
Let's start off with Ukraine,
people
Russia.
he
When it
interacts
first
with
got started,
play into his biases.
you know, you were one of the ones that said
You
this
gotta
is
be
going to
aware
be
of
done in no
those.
time. It's almost done. It's going to be done. It's going to be done in a week. It's going to be done in a month. It's going to be done in 2 months. It's gonna,
Uh-huh.
So a lot of people felt the same way as you, but you were one of the main spokespeople that kept saying this is going to get done.
Mhm.
Why is it still going on today, and it's been as long as it's been?
No, I think that's an important question, and it surprised me as well as lots of other people by the way the Russians went into Ukraine. Their initial operation was very different from what anybody anticipated, and I think President Putin went in with the following objectives. Remember, he's been talking for at least 15 years about his opposition to the movement of NATO to his borders.
See,
He's made it
stupid.
very clear that he regarded it as a threat. One of the reasons he moved into Crimea was that he saw that becoming a NATO naval base, principally for the U.S. Navy, obviously in the Black Sea. So he moved on that first and then said, look, this got to stop. Well, what happened, of course, as you know, is we had the coup in Kiev, or now the Ukrainians call it Kiev. And as a result, we installed a government that was prepared to do essentially whatever we wanted them to do, and we poured billions of dollars in very early to build up an enormous Ukrainian military force whose sole objective was to attack.
Okay, bullshit. All of these takes bullshit. First of all, Putin complaining about NATO reaching Russian borders, bullshit. This is a relatively new propaganda take. This was not a thing as he presented for like a while. No, this is a new bullshit, new excuse he has had to make. This is not true. This has been going on for a while. So he's lying on this. Then the coup thing, lying on this too, of course. The whole thing with like, we made a government in Ukraine which would like listen to whatever we tell to them, also bullshit. The dude who they claim was installed by USA literally was like removed from office before he even completed the term. This is making no fucking sense. Poured millions of dollars into Ukrainian military, also bullshit. All of this, just bullshit. Just pure fucking bullshit. If you actually poured millions of dollars into Ukrainian military to make it strong, you would not be bitching about, you know, taking Kyiv over in like few weeks or whatever the fuck you were bitching about. You would be aware of Ukrainian power. You were not aware of Ukrainian power because Ukraine at the time didn't even have any power at all. They managed to withstand based on just their own will to defend themselves, on civilians making fucking Molotovs to defend their cities, on that little military they had being used in the best way possible, especially after Zelensky already weakened the military because he was trying to suck up to Putin. Okay, this is just a bunch of lies thrown at each other. I'm pissed off at this already. McGregor went to Russian State-owned Arte to express his position to U.S. intervention in Kosovo war. Great. Putting essentially a Muslim drug mafia in charge of that country. Bullshit. Bullshit. Like, look at leadership of Kosovo right now. Look at leadership of Serbia right now. Dare to tell me which ones of these are like drug mafia. Just, what a stupid, stupid view. Yeah, Putin invaded in 2014. That is where he started with his propaganda bullshit. 2014. Ukraine tried to join NATO in 2008. And then got refused. And that was it. There was no chance of Ukraine getting into NATO, dude. Hungary would never approve of it. Turkey would never approve of it. They can't approve of it for fucking Sweden. You think they would have approved it for Ukraine? The fuck are you on? There was no threat of Ukraine getting into NATO anytime soon. Just, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, McGregor appeared on 3 Fox News programs in February and early March to speak in support of Russia's actions. 3 days after the war began, he said the battle in eastern Ukraine is really almost over, and predicted if Ukraine doesn't surrender in the next 24 hours, I suspect Russia will ultimately annihilate them. Holy shit. McGregor said he believed Russia should be allowed to seize whatever parts of Ukraine it wanted. Great. Just great. Hey, I saw the new fuckers. I saved it, actually. So we could go watch it. NATO have been antagonizing Russia for years? How? Who the fuck was antagonizing Russia? How? What? How? What are you talking about? No, it hasn't. NATO did nothing to Russia. If Alaska still owned Alaska. What are you on? What are you on? How has NATO been antagonizing Russia? NATO has not been antagonizing Russia. That is a bullshit thing to say. NATO did nothing to Russia. It was always the Russians trying to start shit with us on our convoys. Are you talking about that? Have you guys seen the new, fresh new lore about Wagner and Russian MOD? You know why they hate each other? Because apparently in, was it 2018? Wagner went to attack USA troops. So like 300 Wagner men go on to attack like a nice tiny little batch of USA troops. They expect help from Russian MOD. To, you know, send actual Russian military there to help Wagnerites attack USA. And they don't get it. Yes, they get fucking wiped. This is what started the whole thing of Wagner hating Russian actual military. It's because they didn't come to help them attack USA troops in Syria. That was the thing. So, no, Russia can't attack and occupy us anymore? Yeah, based. That's how you've been antagonizing them. Like, you remember we had a chatter once who said that NATO is evil because it has been, and I believe the exact quote was, containing Russia. Like that's how I see this idea. It's been antagonizing them. It did nothing, dude. It did nothing to Russia. But yeah, let's see the dude.
Back Russia. And it wasn't very long before Putin concluded that if I don't act soon, I'll have missiles sitting on my border that will be able to reach my nuclear deterrent in no time and rob Russia of any sort of security at all. So he decides to go in, but I think he thought at the beginning, and this was a false assumption, that he would have someone to negotiate with. So he said, I'm going to go in really initially with only about 90,000 troops, organized into small contingents. He gave strict orders that they were to avoid collateral damage at all costs, didn't want to kill anybody. He knew he was moving into an area which was largely Russian anyway. But he also didn't want to kill Ukrainian forces at that point. He said, I want to demilitarize the place, but he said, I don't want unnecessary casualties on the Ukrainian side. And remember, from his vantage point, these were also Slavic cousins, brothers, whatever you want to call them. And the Russians felt that way, I think, initially. And so he moves in with this very small force. He encounters a lot of resistance. I think the resistance is exaggerated in the sense that the Russians have never taken heavy casualties. But nevertheless, he encountered a great deal of resistance. But most important, when he met with people for negotiations, he discovered there's no willingness to reach an agreement because Washington principally is
Hey,
in charge.
I fixed this.
Washington doesn't want an agreement. I mean, he can read
Let me
the
just
tea
put it
leaves,
to
and the tea
size
leaves
and
are very
everything,
clear.
but I fixed
This
it.
is
I
Washington's
fixed it.
opportunity to quote-unquote bleed Russia. In addition to bleeding Russia, once we've bled it, we're going to see Putin and his regime removed. And ultimately, then we'll think about what we want to do with Russia, to include stripping it of resources, breaking it up into smaller parts, whatever. This, of course, was a horror story that he had not really believed in. And he found out, gee, I was wrong. And so by the summer, he has a meeting with all the senior officers, and they say, look, we wanted to go in hard. You told us to go in soft. We wanted more troops. You said no. Now we're in the middle of something. We're not going to end this conclusively unless we build a larger and more decisive force with the right capabilities. And so you have this change in strategy. It says we will consolidate control over what we've got, which is about 20 to 22% of the territory where most of the Russians, but not all of them, lived, where most of the resources are, too, by the way. And we will run essentially an economy of force mission. Our strategy is to build an impregnable fort and then let the Ukrainians expend themselves against it. And then when we're ready, we'll take the offensive. And that's effectively what's happened. And the Ukrainians have expended themselves. They're now at a point where I would say there's practically nothing left. Anybody who is really trained to do much is dead or wounded. It depends on which source you want to trust, but it runs from 250,000 dead up to 300,000 dead to 350,000 dead on the Ukrainian side.
And that's military force, not.
Yeah, that's just soldiers.
Fix it. I'm gonna just leave it here.
Now, I don't know how many civilians have been killed, and I'm very, very suspicious of that because despite the change in strategy that resulted, he has always been unwilling to kill quote-unquote innocent. So if he strikes something, or you see
President Putin.
Yeah. So if you see a strike going somewhere, as we did quite recently, the objective was to kill, frankly speaking, foreign forces that were billeted in a hotel. This included U.S., U.K., and others, because he's been warning everybody in NATO, get out. If you don't get out, you're going to be at risk. And then, of course, next to it, I guess, was a school or something. And so immediately the Ukrainians say, see, the Russians are killing people in schools. You know, we went through this repeatedly where the Ukrainians would set up gun positions inside hospitals, schools, malls. And once that happened, the Russians had no choice but to destroy those gun positions, which meant that they were inevitably attacking what were formerly only civilian targets.
Wait, like, all of this is bullshit. Everything he said in the last, like, minute and something, that was bullshit. Just like hot diarrhea spewing out of his mouth. Nothing else. Nothing else. Holy shit.
I mean, this is not new. We've been through this in the Middle East. We've experienced
No, full of shit so far, everything.
So the bottom line is that now we're at a point where the Ukrainians really have expended virtually everything they've got.
But still.
They're now talking about mounting one last counteroffensive. I don't know how they're going to do it. Whatever they do, it won't succeed. They have no chance of breaking through Russian defenses.
Can I just point out that a man saying whatever they do won't succeed, they have no chances breaking through the defenses, is the same man who thought Kiev was gonna fall down in 2 weeks? Can we just like point it out that maybe when you look at someone for military analysis, maybe you should not listen to people who have been wrong on military analysis previously? Maybe, just maybe, like their previous mistakes make their current analysis kind of worthless.
In the meantime, I think we've had a certain amount of unrest in the senior ranks of the Russian military because a lot of the senior officers want to attack and end this war. And they're very concerned about...
A lot of what senior officials?
General officers in the Russian army, the senior generals.
So then there's a misalignment.
I bet my existence on the fact this man doesn't know a single general. These are the types of people that know like maybe few names that they see mentioned on Twitter spaces often, and that's it. He has no fucking idea what's going on in Russia.
Between Putin and his leaders?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a misalignment as much as Putin
I'm sure he's been there. I'm sure he's sucked some cocks. I'm not sure he has learned about Russian military
he's
structure.
concerned about our predisposition to intervene. The great fear from the beginning has always been that once it became clear that the Ukrainian position was
Because like going like, oh, well, Russian senior officers what does that mean? What does that mean? Which one specifically? How which goals? Who are you referring to specifically? Because we know there's those who are very, very close to Putin, very, very loyal to Putin, and this is why they've kept their positions. We know there's those who are not, maybe not that loyal. We can have reasons to be suspicious of them. There's a difference in, for example, how people collected around Girkin are talking about this war. There's a difference in how people collected around MOD, like when you talk about Shoigu, for example, about how he is viewing this war and about how he is viewing the strategy in this. I'm not seeing this man as like any more knowledgeable on the situation than, you know, your average fucking Twitch chatter, and that's saying a lot. Oh shit, yeah, winter bombing. Yeah, they were bragging about how they're going to freeze out civilians in Ukraine with winter bombing, and now he's being like, Russia never wanted to cause any extra civilian casualties. He's full of shit. He sold some of our tactics to Russians. Oh shit.
To intervene, to rescue what's left.
We almost have
oh
to
shit, get him into prison.
$150 billion
Put him in the hog.
It's almost if you think about it, it's like hedging. If that does happen, hey, we're so in it now that we said once we're not going to send them tanks. If we do, it's going to be this. Now we're talking, planes and all this stuff. We almost have to defend Ukraine now.
Well, I don't think so, but
I'm talking from the Biden's administration.
Yeah, well, your argument actually probably sounds more like how we got ourselves into the First World War. But the bottom line is with this crowd right now, they've expended enormous sums of money. So I'm sure there's pressure from BlackRock and Raytheon and others.
I'm pretty sure they don't pay enough for a new fancy car.
There are only three branches of government in the United States
saying,
now.
Since
One
their
is BlackRock,
soldiers, get
one is
like
Raytheon,
packets of
and
sausages.
the other is the pharmaceuticals.
Huh?
So there's some tragic truth to that, since the Hill is
Maybe you
basically
get some
owned
old
by
Lada or
donors,
whatever.
and we have government by donors. The American people really don't have much of a
Gerasimov?
voice.
Oh shit, not really.
And, they don't know much about it, so they don't.
Him or Surovikin, right?
But the truth is, right
now,
now, the Ukrainians are on the ropes. There's no doubt about it. And there's this discussion, I think, behind the scenes. Do we just move now and end this thing?
You get your new fancy car. New fancy car. Gotten from Russian Ministry of Defense for your trolling online. You sit there, you try to adjust the review mirror, and there's just Budanov just like sitting there in the back. Hey yo! Nema prevoda. We're doing English so we can understand each other. It's a multicultural stream, so we gotta speak to the English, which pains me a lot.
Decisively because they can.
It's mostly foreigners.
Do we wait some more and let the Ukrainians expend some more time and effort? And now you have discussions in the West about a joint Polish-Lithuanian intervention into Western Ukraine. And that's exactly the sort of thing that the Russians have been concerned about. And that could never happen without us authorizing it, supporting it, and encouraging it. And Putin knows that. So we're at a kind of crossroads right now in terms of what's next, and the Russians have to make a decision.
Well, there's a lot there. I'm sorry, Tom. There's a lot there that we covered. A few things. So, from a strategist standpoint, okay, the world, when they think about who Putin is, former KGB, this guy's going to be a shrewd guy. He's going to be 15 steps ahead, or he's going to identify his next 5, 10, 15 moves. So you're going to sit there and say, if we do this, that guy's going to do this. If we do this, are we going to push NATO to want to move quicker to support them? If we do this, maybe it's going to be easier.
Also, like a reminder, Putin was not some like KGB badass. Putin, like this whole thing with him being a KGB guy, it's mostly just used to like get people to respect him. It's not like he was some sort of ultra super secret spy or whatever the fuck, okay? Just being a part of KGB doesn't necessarily mean that you are some sort of a super intelligent dude or whatever the fuck this man is now trying to say. So you're gonna say that Putin is playing like 10D chess and we are unable to see through his moves or whatever the hell? Because it's absolutely not true, but it is the illusion he's trying to create by constantly bringing out his KGB affiliations. Bro, I wish Gerasimov was on the plane. I don't really think he was, but Scott Ritter was on Fresh and Fit last night saying this exact thing as McGregor. Fresh and Fit talks Ukraine? What the fuck? Fresh and Fit? The dudes talking about hoes and hookup culture, those ones, like red pillars, who the hell made them think they can speak about Ukraine? 4 hours, fresh and fucking fit. What do you mean fuck fresh and fit? This dude's the same quality as that trash. You're literally watching the same bullshit. You legit now recommend it as fresh and fit, just like adult version. It's a grown-up in the room instead of like a bunch of angsty little, whatever the fuck they are, teenagers. I guess they're not teenagers, but it's the same trash. When Westerner says Western Ukraine, he's definitely either stupid or paid by Ruskies. That too. No,
to take over a part of Ukraine that we want under Biden, not Trump, because it's good.
Yeah, like that too. Like it's basically like UDBA in Croatia, because we had a situation where if you wanted to be an official of any position, so you wanted to be a proper politician, for example, you had to be a part of the Communist Party, and as a part of a Communist Party, you usually were affiliated with UDBA, which was a secret state police of Yugoslavia, right? But this doesn't mean that these people were actually spies. And it is used today, but they use it in a negative way. So it's like the exact opposite of how Putin uses it. Putin uses it as like, I'm KGB, I'm so smart. Whereas our politicians use it as like, you were UDBA, so you are horrible, a horrible little man. But the fact is that most of these UDBA people who are now, you know, like proper politicians in Croatia, they were not like spies or sent to kill anyone or whatever the fuck people are imagining. They were just a part of the affiliation, because you had to be a part of the affiliation in order to get to any sort of a power in a state built like ours, or in you know, basically is what Soviet Union was. You had to be affiliated with the Communist Party, you had to be affiliated with the secret police. There was not really much choice for people in those times. So just because you were part of the KGB doesn't mean you got the biggest stick in the room. Yeah, that too.
As a guy that sat there with his generals, looking at every single possibility that could happen.
Oh no, Frenchies.
How did he miss the ball?
Why is my meme not showing?
Hey, let's go soft on this. It's going to be fine. They're going to cave in. We're going to get him in no time. His military guys say, no, let's go hard. That's a big miscalculation there on his end, isn't it?
Well, I think President Putin, you mentioned his KGB background. One of the things that people do not understand about the KGB is that the individuals that served in it were practically the only people in the Soviet Union that were allowed to travel beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. That meant that they could travel in the West. Putin was very familiar with the West, particularly with Germany. And by the way, he likes Germans, speaks pretty good German, because I've listened to him in his interviews. So from his standpoint, he saw a West
they
that
see
he
French
thought
and they're like,
they could work with, they could deal with. And he's always been criticized inside Russia for taking that position, because I would say the mainstream Russian position is you can't do business with the West. The West is our implacable enemy. That will never change. We are Russians. We are not part of Europe. We are not part of the West. I think Putin took a different position. I think he thought that Russia should be part of the larger European concert and should have a role in the West. Well, it turns out his critics were right and he was wrong. Now, he's still a very popular leader because he...
Wrong on what? We were doing business with Russia after they butchered Chechens, after they butchered Georgians, after they went into Ukraine and invaded fucking Ukraine and annexed regions of Ukraine, or attempted to annex the regions, because no one took their annexation attempt seriously. We still did business with Russia. We were still planning to reopen the fucking Nord Stream. How in the universe is he being like, the West was so unforgiving to Russia. Russia tried to do business with the West, but the West was so mean and the West hurt Russia's feelings. Bro, we allow them to do so much shit. Even now, like full-scale invasion started, this idiot, full-scale invasion started. And we had people in Europe being like, yeah, guys, Russia is invading Ukraine, and it is killing civilians and bombing hospitals, but their gas is really cheap. I'm just saying, maybe we shouldn't stop buying cheap gas from Russia just because it invaded this useless little Ukraine. Come on. Like, what is he trying to say? Has this man been living in some fantasy land for all this time? What is he talking about? This is just bullshit. I want to know if he had one proper take this entire fucking podcast, and it's only been like, what, 13 minutes? Like, come on, dude. Hey, yo, Zadra.
He has improved the
Still
standards
cooperation
of living,
going on. Fuck.
prosperity. He's restored a lot of Russian national pride and dignity. I think his latest poll, unofficial poll that we get out of Russia, puts him at about 89% approval, whereas Biden is at about 30%. So I think Putin is very secure in that sense now, but he has always struggled with this idea of how far do I want to push it, because Putin is a smart man. He says, when this is over, we want to live with the Europeans and we want to live with the United States. We never thought about that during the Second World War. There were some people who did, because we did enormous damage to Japan, enormous damage to Germany.
Dude, but yeah, are you not understanding how all of his takes are bullshit? Are you unironically? Are you not understanding how all of these takes were bullshit? Like his entire thing right now, are you not understanding why it was bullshit? The thing that Putin wanted to work with the West, but then the West showed him that it's not with that, and he was mistaken in trying to work with the West. Are you not understanding how stupid his take is? Are you genuinely unable to see that? Like, the fuck? That was such a stupid thing to say. That was such a bullshit thing to say. Considering the fact, like, we still have people right now saying that we should have just kept on working with Russia and kept on buying their cheap gas in order to, have a better economy right now. And we should have just ignored their invasion of Ukraine. We were ignoring so many things that these idiots have done. Do you truly still believe that, like, Putin somehow was mistaken into thinking that he should do business with the West and his advices were correct? Zaporizhia, I don't even... To be honest, I'm, like, very... I am very, very, very... disappointed, I want to say. I guess that's a good word to say. I'm disappointed in the actions of the West, especially, like when I say the West, I mean Western Europe, not even USA, because I think USA has been okay. Western Europe strongly. Even if Russia blows up Zaporizhia, I do not believe this will mean Russia has burned all the bridges. I would love to be proven wrong on this. I don't believe in it. I believe we're going to see the explosion, and I believe after we see the explosion, we're going to see some little Frenchies, some little Germans, some little UK people being like, who actually blew it up? Interesting thing to ask. Who was it who blew it up? Maybe we just need peace and to stop supporting Ukraine. And that's going to be it. It's not the double standards. Are you not understanding how this man is stupid? Are you not understanding how this take on Putin cooperation with the West was stupid? Like, genuinely, are you unable to understand it? Also, it's not true that no one's criticizing Americans. People are criticizing Americans. People criticize Americans regularly. But still, like, the fact, I don't even know what in the world, like, makes you think people like these are any better than, like, Fresh and Fit podcast. These are just same trash takes. It's just old people saying it. So I guess you think they're smarter because they're old. This was just, everything he said so far was trash. I don't think Germans would tolerate radioactive rain in that country. I think there's a lot of things that Western Europe will tolerate as long as they can keep a Russian dick in their mouth. Now, again, I would love to be proven wrong. I don't really have much trust in them. I truly believe they're going to be presenting this as like, oh yeah, we can't know who blew it up. We can't know which side is the responsible one. And they're going to brush it under the carpet, and that's going to be it. It's just going to be forgotten. I genuinely don't believe that. No. Seems that activists sit on their ass and the welfare of the government gives them cause of the United States defending their little shit nation. Yeah, I see that, yeah. Like, there's a lot we can do with our budget, with our tax budget, because we don't put that much of it in defense, because we are relying on USA when it comes to defense. Definitely true. That was one of, I think, like when we talk about Trump, I think that was one of his like actually okay points. The fact that a lot of European states are, you know, quite well doing, but then you look at how much they are putting into their defense, and they can't even reach the 2%, which has been requested, let's say, by NATO membership, right? Like, come on, you're doing well. You could do this. You could afford to put 2% of your GDP into defense. You're just choosing not to, which, like, you know, it's kind of a cowardly way to do things, especially considering the fact that if you look at NATO members, it's Europeans which are actually threatened by some sort of a war breaking out or an invasion breaking over. It's not like USA. Come on, it's fucking USA. Who the fuck is going to attack USA? You know, it's us who should be pulling more weight, so... Definitely wasn't a civil war between fucking siblings that caused Syria to break apart. I mean, talking about Syria, have you guys seen the new UN voting? UN has voted to establish independent body to clarify fate of over 130,000 Syrians missing in conflict. You wanna guess which countries voted against? You wanna guess which little group, which little coalition of countries voted against it? Wagner? Yeah, fuck Wagner. Fuck Wagner it's. Same countries as always, yeah. It was even Serbia like this time. Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran voted no. It was also Serbia, and I have actually seen Serbians angry over it. Like, which... You have no idea how proud it makes me. You have no idea how proud it makes me, okay? Serbians are actually waking up to the fact that, you know, sticking with Russia isn't always sticking with the good side of history, so I'm GG with that.
Which is one of the reasons we had to stay there for 50 years. And there were a few voices. Admiral Leahy, who was effectively the chairman of the Joint Chiefs at the time for Roosevelt, brought in the generals and said, look...
I mean, now that I think about it, Tate, you know how when Tate came to Croatia, then he was talking about how our women are submissive and everything, and traditional marriages and bullshit? That type of, like, brain rot, exactly the same as this type of brain rot. It's just idiots knowing that they can say stupid shit online to their audience who is going to gobble it all up, and this is how they make a living. Exactly the same thing, because this dude, like, come on. Some of the takes he had here, like the whole Putin with the West, that one made me so fucking angry. I don't even know why. I do know why. I don't know why it makes me more angry than everything else. But there's no chance he actually believes in this. How stupid would you have to be to actually believe in that? Come on. He has to be just playing along. He has to be just, like, knowing what he's doing and knowing who he's lying for.
You're doing terrible things to these people. We want to be able to live with the Germans and the Japanese when this is over. Well, we didn't pay too much attention to that, but Putin is taking a different position. And he has also made it very clear that this is Russia. This is not the Soviet Union. And the Russian military, contrary to what the Ukrainians have been claiming, have not committed atrocities all over the place.
Bullshit.
They have not murdered and raped and pillaged.
Who saw that fucking news report on that Russian soldier arrested because he filmed himself raping a kid? Have we not seen them behead Ukrainian soldiers on video while laughing about it? Have we not heard of what happened in Bucha? Have we not seen what happened in Izium? What is this idiot talking about? This, everything he said so far, bullshit.
In other words, this is not
one good take here.
Stalin's
Not one
force,
good fucking
his
take
slave
here.
army of 1944 and 45. Putin's made that very clear. He still wants to get along, quote unquote. He would.
Bagheera, I swear to God, we're gonna time you out from the stream if you don't stop being fucking stupid. Are you unable to answer questions that people are directly asking you? Are you genuinely unable to answer questions that people are fucking asking you? Also, that is a stupid fucking point. Where the fuck are you from? America? What is that? If China decided to build military bases in Europe, where? Why? For which reason? Is Germany threatening it's going to invade Slovenia, and because of this, Slovenia would be asking for CSTO membership to be protected? Is that a situation you're imagining? Because we could talk about the geopolitics of that imaginary world then. Like, China decided to build military bases where? How? Why? What organization? Like, what the fuck are you imagining here? It doesn't matter. No, they're not asking stupid questions. They asked very good questions. You're just refusing to answer them because you keep on going on about your whataboutism. Like, you were the one who mentioned this video, and so far this video has just been this idiot spewing the most idiotic takes ever for, like, what? Almost 15 whole minutes. That's it. He has said nothing intelligent so far. Everything he has said is very easy to debunk. Nothing smart has been said so far. Bucha? Yeah, no, Bucha was horrible. Bucha was horrible. Those military bases that the United States had built was with fucking permission of the nations. They asked us to do it. Yeah, that's true, that's true. And they always ignore that. They always ignore that. They ignore the fact that in order to join NATO, a country has to ask to join NATO. And all NATO members have to approve of a country joining NATO. You have to ask. You have to want to get in. Usually you have very good reasons to want to get in. The idea, the thing with like China building military bases around Europe or whatever the fuck, it's so stupid because who the hell would ask for it in the first place and why? Who would you see asking for it? Like, in what sort of a situation? What world are you imagining? That, like, I don't know, even the Hungarians. What world are you imagining where Hungarians would be like, hey, China, I want to build a military base here because I feel like the rest of European Union doesn't really like me? Do you truly think that's a real possibility? Do you truly think that's a real situation? How are you imagining this thing? It's just a broad, useless question worth nothing. No, I don't even think like China is. I don't know why China is used as an example instead of Russia. That's another thing like to point out. I don't know why when they asked that question, they asked like what would be if China built military bases, because China, I don't even know how much China would be prepared to make stupid decisions as Russia is making right now. Like, how is that the most realistic way you're seeing this? Also, how is that the most realistic ally you would imagine Europeans would bring in if they were in the threat of an invasion? I could imagine maybe, like, I guess the closest realistic thing you can imagine is like Serbia asking Russia to build military bases there. Maybe that's the most realistic one. And even then, the fact stands that there is no reason for Serbia to fear an invasion. No one's threatening to invade Serbia. Oh, this is just laughable. Hey, yo, Mayor, how's life? Yeah, I'm back in proper time. Building bases all over Africa, West building bases all over the world. Tell me what's the difference? What? How? We're talking about Russia invading Ukraine. The conversation is about Russia invading Ukraine. If China has some sort of military cooperation with African countries, which I'm not even sure what you are referring to. I'm not even sure which specific base you would be referring to. But how is that related to the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and everything this man has said so far, the man that you recommended to go watch, has been a lie? Sweden Quran? Oh, Swedish police allowed Quran burning to happen in Sweden. So Turkey is using the incident as an excuse to not allow Sweden into NATO, which by itself is problematic enough. But then we have another problem, which is that Putin is trying to use it to lie to people that he gives a shit about Muslims. And this is like where I'm angry about, unironically. Putin doesn't give a shit about Muslims. Putin has power that he has because he went and killed Muslims at the start of his political uprising. The entire reason this man is as loved and as supported by Russians as he is because he went in and butchered Chechens that he has described as Muslim fanatics who are dangerous and like exploding buildings all over Russia and whatever the fuck, which then was found out to very likely have just been a propaganda tactic by Putin to make Chechens into like ultimate villains. So the whole thing here is just stupid.
He wants to avoid a direct war with the United States and with NATO. That drives much of his behavior. But as I said, now he's at a point where he's got to make some decisions. And that is, what do we do? Do we continue to move slowly and deliberately and watch as the Poles and Lithuanians, presumably backed by the United States, intervene in Western Ukraine? Is that what we do? Or do we act? Because what he doesn't want is whatever remains of Ukraine when this is over, he wants that to be neutral. He doesn't want it to be...
That's also bullshit. The fact he can even present it as a valid thing. Putin wants Ukraine to be neutral. Doesn't matter. Like, in what sort of a universe? This is the same bullshit as when people say, well, Putin just wants the warm water port. Who cares? Like, what sort of a trash world have you built in your minds if you can excuse an invasion on a neighboring country because you want them to do something or you want a part of territory they have? In what sort of world is this excusable? It is not Putin's choice whether or not Ukraine is neutral. It should never be his choice. He is not the leader of Ukraine. He is not a representation of Ukrainian people. Ukraine should be allowed to choose a path that it wants to choose. Yes, he can insult you because so far you've been avoiding answering every single question. Plus, he also recommended a trash video with a trash man talking trash points. We do have double standards here, actually. I do very openly do double standards in this chat. I've got zero tolerance on stupidity. So the fact that you are refusing to answer like very good questions that you asked, to be honest, to me, it just shows that you don't really have positions. You're possibly grifting the same way this idiot is grifting. So I don't really see why we should be like, you know, feeling too much sympathy. It's just been cowardly actions from you all over the place today.
Militarized. He doesn't want it to be a platform for attack against Russia. He views Ukraine the same way we viewed Cuba in 1963. We don't want it to be a platform for attack against us. We still don't. And that's his position. Now, can he achieve that if he stands by and allows the Poles, the Lithuanians, or anybody else, even U.S. forces, to move into Western Ukraine? I think the answer is no.
Colonel, is the position you just described very eloquently on President Putin, is that the resolved view that is in front of President Biden? Is that where the Joint Chiefs are, or are they taking a different view?
What I do know is that the senior officers in the Army and the Pentagon, I can't speak for the other services, but certainly the Army, have made it very clear that we are in no position to wage conventional war against the Russians.
And are they presenting what you just presented as Putin's attitude and position?
Certainly the Army have made it very clear. Senior officers in the Army and the Pentagon, I can't speak for the other services, but certainly the Army have made it very clear that we are in no position to wage conventional war against the Russians.
What does he mean? What is he talking about? What does he mean? What does he mean about that? Who, how, what, in what context, what? I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Yeah, it is that one. And he seems to be quite trash, so. What did I tell you? What did I tell you?
And are they presenting what you just presented as Putin's attitude and position with that?
I doubt it, simply because if you try to present that position to the people who are really running the government, They are so full of hatred and animosity and antipathy for Moscow and what it represents to them that no one will listen. So I think they have what we call ideological blinders on.
So is that why there is so much willingness, if that is a prevailing view that's being propagated not only to the president's daily, threat report, I assume, and to the president himself, then is it any surprise to you that senators are greenlighting billions of dollars for Ukraine? Because it's to defeat this evil, not to go Middle East on you, but to defeat this evil Satan that is the old USSR, Russia.
Well, remember, part of the problem here is of Putin's own making at the beginning because of the way he went in. It conveyed to the West this notion of, see, the Russians aren't serious, they're weak. They're weak. They don't know what they're doing. And then we flooded the airways with all of this propaganda about the Russians are stupid, and they described the Russians exactly the way the Germans described the Soviets during World War II, which of course was nonsense. I mean, I was in graduate school in Soviet East European studies, so I'm very familiar with it.
Of course he was.
And they literally lifted phrases and things out of books
Of
that
course
had
he
been
was.
written
Of
about
course
the
he
Soviet
was.
Army in the end of the Second World War.
Bro,
and they
no,
were
I despise
hurling this
Putin.
crap
What?
at the Russians.
I despise
and
Putin.
everybody in the West, of course, was eager to believe it. Remember, we have the Cold War behind us, so it's not very hard to say.
Not
you know,
as good
the
as
Russians
a
are really
promise
bad.
of
Sure.
peace.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know, like I guess pro-NATO, It's a good promise of peace. It worked really, really well in Balkans, plus it worked really well in Eastern Europe too. So no countries which have joined NATO have been attacked by Russia so far. Which, makes it for a quite useful alliance and makes it for a quite useful promise of peace to countries which are in danger of being invaded by, their neighbors. So, NATO's GG over that. That's where he channels goodness sense. The other guy, Patrick, but David literally ran an MLM scheme to become rich and now gives advice to budding entrepreneurs on how to run actual business with half-baked opinion and everything. Oh, so basically Tate, but older, right? That's basically that. Great. Cute. Lovely. Just amazing. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, right. They were bad a few years ago, so they must be bad again.
At the final straw.
That's part of the problem. But Putin went in. He was too easy.
I know, bro. Like the fact that NATO has refused to accept fucking Georgia in 2008, and then a few months later, Russia goes into Georgia and does ethnic cleansing and annexes two regions, attempts to annex them, still controls them. For me, it's like, this wouldn't happen if NATO actually got involved. This wouldn't happen if NATO was not worthless. If Russia had not invaded Ukraine, then Finland would not have joined NATO. Yeah, I could see that. What do you mean you can't come to that conclusion? Finland didn't even plan to join NATO until Ukraine got invaded. What the hell are you talking about? There was literally a huge reason why Finns supported joining NATO. What are you talking about?
And it looked as though he was weak. Well, now everything has turned around. You've got about 750,000 troops focused on the Western military district in Russia, in other words, the Western theater. About 350,000 in the south.
Yeah. When did Russia invade? It's for the first question. When did Russia invade? When do you think the Finns have started feeling scared of being so close to Russia? When did Russia start invading countries around it and occupying their territories? Because it was in 2008, right after NATO refused to accept Georgia into it, and then Russia went in and butchered a bunch of Georgians, did ethnic cleansing in the areas, still occupies two parts of it. Right? So very obviously, when this happens, very obviously... Hey, you're Helke. Thank you for the sub. Thank you. Obviously, in that sort of a situation, there would be like an obvious reason for countries also bordering Russia to start fearing a little bit. Western conservatives simping for Russia is a stupid shit. No, definitely. Oh, definitely. And the whole thing with like them protecting conservative values or whatever the fuck, it pisses me off.
Now, where are the other 400,000? Well, some of them are tied up in logistical support infrastructure. Some of them are in missile, rocket, artillery batteries. Some of them are up in Belarus. Some of them are just in Western Russia. The point is that this is an enormously powerful force now with all the most modern equipment and technology. I think
Sweden,
even
because not all NATO countries want to accept Sweden. In order to get into NATO, you have to be allowed in by all members. Turkey is not allowing Sweden to get in, though. Their reasons have varied. So for a while they demanded Sweden give them over Kurds who are living in Sweden. Now it's mostly just like playing with, dumbass incidents happening all over Sweden in order to try and have a reason to not accept them, even though it makes no real sense, but like political bullshit and everything. Turkey was trying to be like kind of neutralish on the whole thing for a while. But yeah, all members have to accept a country getting in, which is, also, yeah, they allowed Finland to get in. All members allowed Finland to get in. It was more imperative also for Finland to get in because of the huge border it shares with Russia, but all members did agree to let Finland in, so Finland got in. All members did not allow for Sweden to get in, so Sweden did not get in. Sweden is also having a lot stronger, I want to say, propaganda happening in it, which is making it harder for Turkey to accept it. So like when you think of Quran burnings, they happen in Sweden both times, and it's not like they happen in Finland, right? So Turkey is using this as a thing to get personally offended about. Which military provocations near the borders of Russia did USA do? Also a good question of like, when did Putin ask for this to stop? All democracies accepted Sweden. Yeah, true. Oh, we gave Turkey some F-16s that made them happy, so Finland got in. Yeah, I guess strong cooperation was a part of it. Yeah. Well, wasn't there a situation before with like Turkey when it was supposed to get? Was it F-16s? What was it supposed to get? It was supposed to get something, and then it couldn't because it had some Russian systems in the country. Bagheera, stop switching the fucking topic. You're so annoying. What do you think is weird about Finland being allowed to join NATO? Like, why do you thought it was weird Finland was allowed to join? S-400s. Oh, yeah, those. Could be those. I know that... I know there was something. To be honest, I read the news about this. Listen, my knowledge of like military systems has improved since, we've been following this regularly, and I've learned a lot from people in chat. But a lot of news that I've read like previously, I just kind of didn't remember the military systems because I had no idea what they were. I would need to like revisit a bunch of stuff that I've saved back then to just like look at it and finally understand the fuck they were talking about. S-400s are top notch and everyone knows it, so here is it. Yeah, but it was a stupid risk because like you're losing American systems to allow Russian systems in your country. Fucking Russia. Goddamn Russia. Come on. So I don't really think it was a smart choice at all. Deflecting. It's deflecting. Yeah. Because like we don't even have... No, you can't share a short video. You have to answer. I don't want short videos. That's what you people always do. You ask stupid questions, and then I give you a question back, and then you send me a fucking video, and then the video is some retarded shit like this dude talking. You can't share a video. You either can answer a question, or you have to accept you don't know enough about a topic and shut the fuck about it and go get educated. You can't share a video. No, this is like the fucking anarchist kiddo here every time sharing ideas of his utopia, and then you ask him one question and he gives you like 20 fucking videos. None of the videos actually answer the goddamn question. None of the videos actually explain the point. But he sends you the video anyways, because like you can't ask questions to the creator of the video. So you can just like, you know, be pointing out the inconsistencies and that's it. But you can't demand he answers it. You can demand the kid in chat answers your questions, but he will never do that.
The biggest skeptics are shocked and surprised at the precision, the accuracy, and the responsiveness of Russian missile and strike assets.
For people who are listening who don't have a map in front of them, when you say the western theater of Russia, you mean the eastern also border of Ukraine, right there, and the south you mean Crimea.
I'm talking about in southern Ukraine, the area which is referred to by the Russians as Novorossiya. This stretches from basically Odessa all the way up to Kharkov.
Are you just like, no, you can't share a video? I already answered your question. You can't share a video. Tell me what the provocation was. You can't share a video.
Most of that is now under Russian control.
With this force of 750,000.
Yes.
So okay, so let's go back to trying to think what Putin was thinking about. So let's go soft instead of going hard. What's the advantages of going soft? So for you as a strategist, to be fair,
Not to mention, by the way, not to mention, you are aware that immediate guarantees from USA and NATO were in relation to the fact that Putin at the time already has occupied and attempted to annex several regions of Ukraine. And what he wanted was for USA and NATO to promise to keep Ukraine neutral, basically meaning that it would not get approved into any sort of international organizations meant to help it defend itself against the Russian aggression. Correct? Like, this was after the invasion. Way after the fucking thing. This was after Russia broke both Minsk. This was after Russia broke Steinmeier. This was when Russia started escalating again. And they were like, okay, you know what we need? We need to demand USA to not help Ukraine, because foreign help to Ukraine is going to make it harder for us to control the country. So what we need to do is demand USA not to help Ukrainians defend any further. That was the whole thing. And this happened after the fucking invasion, by the way. You will not be able to provide a single claim of any sort of provocations happening before the invasion actually started. The same way none of you people are able to provide an actual claim of Russian language being put under any sort of control, or how you say it, banned, before the actual invasion. It's because it never happened. You're operating based on vibes and bullshit. You don't know how timelines work. You don't know how, like, reality moves. You've got no idea what's going on. Yeah, that's true. Like, he wanted NATO troops to pull out from former Warsaw Pact member countries. What in the universe gives gives Putin the power to ask for this if the countries want to be allied to USA? What in the world? Like, I don't know. Truly, it's one of those opinions that are like, what makes you think he has the right to ask for this? The fuck makes you think he has the right to even make this demand? Russian guy told Weiss her questions were provocation because she mentioned the war one time. Oh, fuckers.
You know, when you're saying, you know, how you would do it and what you would do, you have a PhD, I think, in international relations from University of Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. So, if what is the advantage of going?
That's also true. We don't know. When it comes to like Patriot systems being hit, the thing that got confirmed is that there was some like slight damage and it got repaired on the battlefield. Right? I'm pretty sure that was it. I'm pretty sure that was like the whole thing. There was nothing else there. Russians did claim they destroyed like what was it? 5 Patriot batteries, if I'm not mistaken. Nothing of that was ever proven.
Soft because you're thinking that guy's going to cave. Okay, fine. So let's flip it. What is the advantage of going hard right off the bat? Where his soldiers are saying, no, we have to go strong with these guys to get what done. What's their argument of going hard instead of going soft?
Well, first, let's be clear about the PhDs and degrees. You know, thermometers have degrees, and you know where you stick those.
He said 5 after they claimed
I'm not disparaging my PhD. I'm just being honest. There are a lot of people walking around with degrees that don't know anything. In fact, I would argue that most of them don't amount to anything.
Because like at the first, there was an, I don't know if I want to call it evolution. But that was basically an evolution of like Russian lies over this, because it started with we managed to hit the Patriot system with like one missile and we destroyed it. And then what you saw is a lot of people sharing infographics and everything of like, oh, this is what a Patriot system looks like. Like it's very impossible. You shot all of these vehicles. How? With one missile? How? So then they quickly claimed that like all of these vehicles were at one spot. Do you remember those days where they were like, oh yeah, all of these vehicles, they were like on one spot, they were very close to each other, so you could actually destroy them with one missile because they were all huddled together basically, as if like, I don't know, Ukrainians are the dumbest fucking planets in the universe. And then it evolved to them learning what batteries are. And this is where it started with them saying that they actually managed to hit a Patriot battery because they learned. Along the way, they picked up some information and they evolved. So it started with we destroyed the entire Patriot with like one, because they thought Patriot was one vehicle only. And then it was like, no, it's multiple vehicles, but all of them were at one spot. And then it was, no, it's actually multiple vehicles and they were not all at one spot. They were spread around, but we managed to hit a very important vehicle. And then it was, we managed to hit 5 of them actually, even though none of this got proven in any way. So yeah.
They're not practitioners. I focused when I went to graduate school in military matters because I'm a professional soldier. And it was my obligation, I thought, since the American people were funding my education, to focus on military affairs. And specifically at that point,
I've heard NATO had a base on the ground, like 100 kilometers down, and Russia managed to hit all of it.
Now, having said that, again, it goes back to a set of assumptions. I think that Putin, if you go back and look at his willingness to negotiate, there was a point during the first 3 weeks when the negotiators met that Putin said, I will immediately embrace a ceasefire while these negotiations are on. And they stopped. The Russians stopped in their tracks. Of course, people in the West said, well, that's
bullshit,
because they're logistically unsustainable and all this. But that wasn't true. He was sending a signal. I'm serious.
Also bullshit. There were no security guarantees offered to Ukraine at all. Also, his troops didn't stop. They were destroyed. They didn't stop. He's presenting it as like, oh yeah, Russians were making gains, and then Russians intentionally stopped making gains. It wasn't intentional. They got destroyed. They got fucking demolished. This is just, none of this is true. The thing with them being unviable, yeah, it's because they never offered Ukraine any security guarantees. They never did that with Minsk 1, they never did that with Minsk 2, even like the Steinmeier, it never had security guarantees. The only security guarantees offered to Ukraine in regards to this were the security guarantees it got when it gave up its nukes, and we saw how easily those were broken. So there were no proper negotiations happening here. This is bullshit. If he now mentions Boris Johnson personally flew in and stopped the negotiations.
I'm willing to negotiate. And remember that the whole thing revolved around the Minsk Accords. Nobody in the West pays much attention to those accords, but they were signed by Germany, France. We backed them.
And
we promised that the Russians who live in Ukraine would be treated as equal citizens, equal to the law along with Ukrainians. They would not be pressured to become Ukrainian.
They were not.
As long as they were good citizens and obeyed the law. They could speak their own language, go to their own schools, go to their own church, and so forth.
Like all of this bullshit. They still had fucking church. Until now, even though the church was directly connected to Kremlin, they had their own church. They still have their own church they're going for. It just has been kicked out of some churches because it's connected closely to Kremlin, so connected closely to Kirill, who is a KGB officer very close to Putin. So, of course, you don't really want to have someone that close to Putin having control over churches in a country. But, like, still, dude, Russia invaded in 2014 until, like, what, 2000? When was it even that they kicked out the parts of the church? 2023? So for 9 years, while they were being invaded by Russians, not only did many Ukrainians still speak Russian, they also just had Russian church directly controlled by the Kremlin. They still had it allowed everywhere in Ukraine. No one was stopping them from going to their own church. This is just bullshit.
Was a big lie, as it turns out. And Angela Merkel, who was the German chancellor, was the first to come out publicly.
That also, by the way, bullshit. It annoys me that everything he's saying so far has been bullshit. When it comes to Angela Merkel, he's going to say that she lied when she was signing Minsk. She wasn't. First things for you to know on this is that Angela Merkel is a fucking coward. The interview she gave was an interview in which she was trying to wash down her reputation. She was trying to make it seem like she wasn't sucking off as many Russians as she could. That's the first thing. The second thing is that she never said that the Minsk deals were fake, nor were they broken by Ukrainian allies who signed it. They were not broken by Germany. I don't even know why people fall for this stupid-ass fucking point. What she said was that we knew we can't trust Russia, but we signed the deals anyways because we knew this is going to give Ukraine more time. That was the thing. She never said that, like, oh, we wouldn't comply with the deals. She never said we planned to break the deals. They didn't break the deals. She said they knew they can't trust Russia, but they signed the deals anyways. That was the whole fucking interview. He is misrepresenting it, as a lot of these fucking losers do. And knowingly, he's doing this because he knows idiots will watch this video and be too stupid to go and actually check out the Angela Merkel interview. Most tanks and artillery. The tanks cost $1.6 million and gets destroyed by 78k javelin. Fucking base. Vatican. I want to see the Vatican shit. I want to be angry on Vatican before we continue. Pontifex. Pope's special representative met with Belova. Great. CEO of child abductions means the CEO of child predators. Fucking yeah. Holy shit. It's...
They say we lied. That was just to buy time for
See, that they didn't lie. She never said they lied.
Ukraine to build itself up into the military power that it has become.
Also, it was not a military power. Zelensky was literally taking the funds away from Ukrainian military. It was not a military. It was not becoming a stronger military power. This is also bullshit. This is absolutely not true.
Macron admitted it was a lie. So even after having been lied to prolifically about all the things that were important to the Russians, he decided, I'll call a ceasefire. We'll see how these talks progress. Well, the talks didn't progress.
Bullshit.
And then suddenly we had this man, Boris Johnson, who flew in as effectively a surrogate for Biden and said, stop, don't give up anything. And that was because...
This too, the idea that Ukraine was planning to give up areas if only Boris Johnson didn't fly in and stop them from doing it, also bullshit. Just, I don't know. So far, you know, so far what he's doing, so far he's spewing out like every single cheap propaganda take on this. He has said nothing of value. Everything he said has been bullshit. I don't know if at like single point here he's going to actually say something useful, but it doesn't seem so far.
Zelensky had said, sure, I think we could live with neutrality. Actually made that statement, which was the end goal as far as Putin was concerned. We wanted to be neutral. In other words, you have this nice, large, neutral state the size of Texas that lies between Russia and NATO. Gosh, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. In fact, back in 1999 and...
What was it with like Zelensky saying they could live with neutrality? Do we know the context for that one, by the way?
1998, when I was the director of the Joint Operations Center at SHAPE headquarters, Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, these discussions went on, and somebody said, well, where's Ukraine in all of this? And everybody said, Ukraine's mission is to be a nice buffer, you know.
See that? What in the world gives you the right to just use countries as you like? What in the world gives you the right to say, yeah, Ukraine should be a buffer? Ukraine must be a neutral buffer state. What gives you the right to ask for this? Like what? Oh yeah, by the way, I'm looking for Zelensky neutrality. I'm seeing people claim that it's not true. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Ukrainians mocking people for saying that about Zelensky. Yeah, that's it. The only thing I'm seeing is that at one point he was like, hey guys, you know, maybe we're not gonna ask to become full NATO members, but instead of becoming a full NATO members, we want to have Article 5 security relationship with the West, which is basically at joining NATO. It's like we're not going to be NATO members in name, but we're going to be having NATO security guarantees. That's it. That's the whole thing. That was the neutrality he was proposing. So I don't know. No. Buffer? I don't know. I don't know why they would require a buffer. I don't know who gives them the right to ask for a buffer in the first place. What gives you the right to ask to have a buffer? It's ridiculous. Should have been.
Don't fight there, don't go there. Let there be a nice buffer between Russia and us. I mean, that was widely viewed as a positive thing. Well, that was thrown out of the window. And instead, Boris Johnson says, we will back you to the hilt. We will give you everything that we possibly can. Your job is to go out there and fight, and we'll back you, and eventually we will be victorious. The Russians will collapse. Putin will be gone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of that's happened. And today, Russia is stronger, I would argue, economically than it was before the war began. Our sanctions have been ultimately quite helpful to the Russians. They are not a part of our Western financial system to the extent that they might have.
I think the whole buffer talk is the same as the whole threat of NATO talk, which is a recently created excuse for Russia going in and butchering its own neighbors. It's a relatively recent thing. So like when Baltics joined NATO, for example, you didn't have Russians bitching about that. You didn't have Russians complaining about that. And I think the reason why I didn't see Russians complaining about that is because, you know, they were okay with NATO being closed. They were still cooperating with NATO. They were still quite close to them. It was GG with them. Like, come on, Russia was at NATO fucking meetings until quite recently. Russia was allowed to come to NATO meetings. What was it like? In 2008, I know they were definitely there. I don't know exactly when they stopped coming. Possibly 2008, I would guess. But they were just coming to NATO meetings as like a partner. And they were nothing. They were just nothing to NATO. They were just cooperating with them quite strongly. So they didn't need a buffer state until they started going in and butchering their neighbors. And then it became clear that, hey, we don't really dare to go in and butcher neighbors who are in NATO. And therefore, we need to keep our neighbors out of NATO. Because if they are in NATO, then there's nothing really protecting our influence over them and nothing ensuring that they are going to be sticking with us instead of sticking with the West. Yeah, guys basically exist for the purpose of stopping these two big countries from going to war. Yeah, that too. But like, you know, the thing is with like, let's say Ukraine, for example. How would Ukraine being a buffer stop USA and Russia from getting into a war in the first place? You know, like how do we have to have everyone around Russia neutral? How is that going to stop it? Because Russia is still going to do invasions, and you know what it does whenever it does an invasion? It gets closer to NATO. It gets fucking closer. Whenever it invades a new country, it gets a little bit closer to NATO every single fucking time. Like they're the ones at this point pushing for a border with NATO. And how is this in any way helping us stop the war? Artillery, ammo, and men to hold, and they have no more men because Wagner left. Paramilitary is surrendering. They already recruit every prisoner. True. It's still important, though, to acknowledge them as a dangerous force. I think it's still fuck them. It's still important to acknowledge that they are likely going to cause quite a lot of losses, and we must. Holy shit! I have to say something. We must be aware of how important it is to be helping Ukraine right now and supporting them and donating to them. They still are a strong opponent that is going to cause a lot of losses. But by the way, Russian state TV is doubting the effectiveness of Wagner, which took much longer to liberate a less important Bakhmut in comparison to Mariupol.
По поводу созданного мифа о максимальной эффективности частной военной компании «Вагнер». Мариуполь – один из важнейших центров украинской металлургии и крупный морской порт, расположенный на берегу Азова. Общая площадь агломерации 244 квадратных километра, 425,5 тысяч жителей, город, входивший в десятку крупнейших на Украине, из которого 8 лет целенаправленно делали мощный укрепрайон, считавшийся неприступной Азовсталью и крайне мотивированным батальоном Азов. Националистическая организация запрещена в Российской Федерации. Войска Минобороны, чеченские подразделения Росгвардии, батальоны Спарта и Сомали освободили Мариуполь за 71 день. Все помнят эти кадры, вереницу из тысяч сдавшихся в плен неонацистов.
Всех убить, кого всех убивать собрался?
И не самый важный с точки зрения всего фронта Артемовск.
There was a message in Skades yesterday. Russia won't lose Bakhmut, right? Question mark. And I saw it before going to sleep, and I was like,
Зачем мы привели все эти данные?
You're
Безусловно, мы
fearing it.
никоим
Cute.
образом не умаляем подвиг бойцов ЧВК «Вагнер», которые честно и самоотверженно сражались, освобождая Артемовск. Мы лишь за то, чтобы картина происходящего всегда была объективной и непредвзятой.
we just want to be objective and unbiased, so we're going to bring out the fact that it took them a long time to liberate this city. Fuckers. Just
by us.
fuckers.
Seriously.
How have the sanctions been helpful to Russia?
Well, they've managed to sell all of their energy products, all of their minerals, everything, agricultural products, through others at high.
How's ruble doing right now? Have I not seen some news on this? Have I not seen some news on this? Cute. Cute. Give me the 1 year. Year to date, 6 months. 5 years? This is 5 years. Gzz, bromp. Gzz, romp. Wagner was supposed to be replaced by Chechens at the front. Hey, talking about Chechens, like Kadyrov, the piece of shit. Kadyrov has claimed he will not be sending any more Chechens to the front because Chechnya already gave, what was it, like 120% more men than the other regions of Russia have given for this war. And now he's still like choosing to send them around. It's ridiculous. Both sides of Ukraine conflict have, it's, first of all, it's not Ukraine conflict, it's Russian invasion of Ukraine, okay? Second of all, dude, Azov is defending the country against an invasion. Wagner is participating in the invasion. Not only that, but Wagner also participated in war crimes in numerous other states around the world. You can't possibly be comparing a nationalist group of volunteers in Ukraine, which were organizing against the Russian invasion on Ukraine, with fucking Wagner. And first of all, talking about Russian Nazis, you would be much better to talk about Rusisch than you would be talking about Wagner itself. But still, what? What the fuck are you doing? How the fuck are you even making this comparison? That is such a stupid thing to say. Yeah, which ones of these are fucking invading? Dude, come on. Buddhists from high school are taking positions in the meat grinder. L to them, I guess.
Higher prices that have ultimately reached their target destination in Europe and other parts of the world anyhow. So the amount of hard currency, if you will, from the West that's pouring in has actually increased. At the same time, they've discovered that they could sell virtually everything if they needed to China and India to a lesser extent. Those two countries, these are over 1 billion people in each country, enormous economies. They want to do business with Russia. So that the absence of the European market per se has not turned out to be this terrible experience that everyone in the West assumed it would be.
Wasn't that a chess game a lot of people saw coming because both India and China will never be self-sufficient on energy?
Well, I suppose so. I don't know that anybody regarded it as a chess game because the difference between Putin, whatever mistakes he made in terms of assumptions, shrink to insignificance next to the mistakes that we've made, I would argue. Because we made assumptions about Russia that were just completely wrong, just like the rest of the world. Number one, Russia is a backward economy that will collapse quickly if we sanction it. In other words, that they're not a true nation state in the Western sense. They don't have a developed economy. They can't survive.
Yeah, we regarded it as some sort of mega island.
Zadro, no one wants to invade Russia. No one's gonna invade Russia. No one wants to invade Russia. Only way to beat him is with civil war, and he killed all his opponents, but Navalny, who said about Germany, he tried to poison him. Yeah, Navalny, the thing with Navalny is this, okay? Russia has a way of dealing with opposition. A Russian way of dealing with opposition is to chunk them out of a window or give them some poison tea. Okay, it's effective. It works. It's fucking effective. Navalny has been kept alive. Not only has Navalny been kept alive, Navalny has been kept alive despite the fact that he has a team writing around posts on his behalf, and despite the fact that he is presented as like the face of opposition inside Russia. Navalny is being kept alive. By itself, this should be raising suspicion in anyone. Why is he being allowed to live? People have been killed for far less. Why is Navalny being left to live? The way I see it, Navalny is being left to live because Navalny is planned opposition. Navalny is what Russia uses to let off the steam. Navalny is the man they use when they want to present the image to the West of like a Russia which could become democratic. Because Navalny himself is imperialistic. Navalny himself has very interesting views, to say the least, about immigrants coming to Russia, about non-Russians in Russia, about stuff like that. Navalny is not actual opposition to Russian current style of government. Navalny is opposition to Putin and only Putin himself, which is why Navalny poses no threat. Navalny's existence does not mean that he is encouraging Russians to become proper citizens of a democratic country. Navalny's existence does not mean that Russians are going to actually try and get invested in choosing who leads them. They're just replacing one dictator with another dictator. That is the point. Navalny's existence still keeps Russians complicit. Everyone who has been dangerous to Russia in any sort of a way has been dealt with. Anyone actually being a danger to the regime, it has been dealt with. Navalny is allowed to live because what he is doing and what his team is doing is basically nothing. What are they doing? Pointing out corruption within Russia? Fucking worthless. Pointing out the fact that people have, what was it recently? Putin's expensive villa or whatever? Worthless. Your country is doing a genocidal invasion on a neighbor state, and the best thing you can do is be like, hey, look at Putin's expensive rooms in this villa. Who the fuck gives a shit? Who the fuck actually cares? You're not actually fighting against your government. You're just trying to poke at it lightly from the side, and then Russians go, yay, we're actually poking at the Putin regime. And nothing really happens because you're not actually meaningfully creating any sort of a change. You're just bitching a bit on the side, and it makes people feel better. You know what Navalny is? Navalny is planned opposition in the same way I see it as that... fuck, I always remember that girl. I don't even know what she's doing right now. But there was this girl in Moscow, and she protested in front of... Kremlin. She protested against the war. So she carried banners and everything, and she was protesting against the war, and then she was arrested. And it wasn't like a bunch of news. Oh, girl goes to protest with like banners and shit by herself, gets arrested by the police. Whoa, look at Russians, what are they going to do to this girl? Whoa, horrible, horrible. You know what they did to this girl? Fucking nothing. Like few weeks later, she was in Poland, working for some sort, what was it? Something human rights. Something. She was the one who wrote that post, if you guys remember. The post which was like, oh, the current situation? No. It was the genocide post. It wasn't the burning house. It was the genocide one. It was the one that if what Russia is doing right now to Ukrainians is genocide, then what we do to mosquitoes every summer is genocide. And she compared it to like a genocide of toilet paper during the COVID crisis. Do you guys remember that? That is the same girl who protested against the war in front of Moscow. They arrested her and they let her go. She was useful opposition. People were able to share her story around. People were being like, look at Russia, they actually have opposition. Maybe there is hope for this country getting better. And then it turns out that the opposition is just a woman pretending to give a shit. Same thing with Navalny. Same exactly thing with Navalny. Navalny is no proper opposition. Navalny is just no one. Navalny is not going to create any sort of meaningful change in Russia. More likely to be angry about material inequalities than over genocide. I could even see that. I could even see that. They don't seem too angry about material inequalities. So I don't know. Why bigger danger than a normal person? Oh yeah. No, he could be. I just think it depends on the way you are defining this danger. Because, you know, he did cause, he did invade other countries. He did go and start several genocidal campaigns. He did do ethnic cleansing with his military so many times. So it's like, is he very dangerous? Yes. The problem with acknowledging that he is dangerous is that a lot of people do it in, I don't know if I want to say delusional ways, but they do it in a way to pretend like there's a fear of him using a nuke, or they do it in a way to pretend like he's playing some 5D chess. And I think that is where like you need a reality check. He is a very dangerous person. His troops have killed many. His troops have tortured many. He absolutely is dangerous. But you have to make sure you are not creating like some sort of a Disney supervillain out of whatever he is. Would be way more dangerous with a competent military? Yeah, definitely. But then also I feel like in a country able to have a competent military, a person like Putin likely wouldn't be staying in power, you know? So nukes are... No, Russia is dangerous. Nukes are too, but nukes will not be used. Russia will not be using nukes. If there's anything we learned from the Wagner coup attempt, it's that if Putin's actual life is brought in danger, what he is going to do is shit his pants and run in his bunker. He did nothing. The man pretending to be brave, the man who for such a long time was creating this illusion of being like super ultra masculine alpha leader, man taking shitless fucking pictures up in the mountains to show us how macho he is. When Wagner was marching towards Moscow, he shat his pants and he left. He ran away. Let's just not, you know, be delusional over the danger he poses. What's fake news? Which part of this? Yeah, sure, he didn't. Absolutely he didn't. Thank you, corruption in Russia, definitely. No, absolutely. The corruption they have is like the best thing that came out of his troops. Also, I had something else to say and I forgot what it was. Yeah, when it comes to nukes being used, you also have to be realistic on the nukes being used. Putin can't use a nuke. Like, the order from him to use a nuke must go through several channels. It's not like he is the ultimate power choosing to use a nuke. It has to go through several people. Now, here's the thing. Using a nuke means mutually assured destruction. Okay? How many of these people in a Russian chain of command do you think have a place in Putin's bunker? Because I can assure you, it is not a lot. They will not use a fucking nuke. It's going to mean destruction of all of these people. It's going to mean destruction of their families. It's going to mean destruction of their entire fucking country. For Putin. For Putin. And important to mention, for Putin now. For Putin, who came out of the Wagner coup attempt looking like a cowardly little clown. Both in the eyes of the population and in the eyes of the leadership. For Putin, who is now attempting to do a purge of officials around him to try and figure out which ones of them are on Wagner's side, he's looking weaker and weaker and weaker. And with his illusion of power crumbling, there is no reason for the chain of command to be like, yeah, let's use a nuke. No. The entire point of becoming an official, the entire reason why you become an official in the Russian military, why you reach the position where you are even like reaching the point of being in the chain of command in order to approve of use a nuke, is that you can be corrupt as fuck, you can steal a lot of cash money, and you can send your family to live in proper countries so they don't have to get educated and stay in that shithole of Russia. That is the entirety of the point. That is why you are loyal to Putin. It gives you benefits. If he uses a nuke and the whole country gets wiped the fuck out, you will be reaping no benefits, and you know it. It will not be used. A nuke will absolutely not be used. 5%, I don't know where are you getting the 5% number? What are you talking about? These bitches can just blow up ZMPP and bring the world closer to famine because they are fertile lands where shit ton of crops are produced at the moment. Yeah, that too. That's way more likely to happen. And also because for that one, they could actually feign ignorance and they could say that they didn't do it. So that too.
Yeah, they don't have a real scientific industrial.
Wait, what? 97? Holy shit, that seems too high. 5 seems way too low, but this seems way too high. Holy shit. When? February 15th? Damn. Yeah, 97 seems too high. 97 seems too high. Yeah, but 5 also seems ridiculous. No chance. No, 5, you know what is 5? 5% is like the same type of delusion as, Russia has fancy tanks in like garages in Moscow and it still hasn't been using them. And then you see the shit that they're sending to the front lines. Like, come on, my dude, come on. If they had superior firepower, genuinely, do you not think they would have just stormed Ukraine by this point? Like, how would prolonging this make anything better for them? Oh, could be of the current. Wait. 97 of the Russian army. Russian aviation is holding Ukrainian forces back a fair bit, though. Yeah, that is true. That they are still making gains, so. An actual analysis rather than a politician? Yeah, makes sense. Current effective combat troops, not counting reserves, infirm training. With the lawyer terms. Yeah, I see that. Like, it's a number you use to make it sound better, but then someone actually looks at the number and it's like, No, Ukraine is making gains. It's not true, it's a stalemate. Ukraine is making gains. Russia could keep adding more troops through mass mobilization efforts or smaller, more stealthy conscription drives, but those efforts would be calling on men who likely do not have military experience, and who Russia would need to spend time training if they wanted them to enter Ukraine via any real skills. Some Russians called up in September mobilization received so little training that some were sent home in body bags within just 1 month of being called up to fight in Ukraine. Holy shit. Oh yeah, we don't know anyone's losses. That is true. We don't know anyone's losses. What? What? What got debunked? What are you talking about? 300, 400k? Yeah, but like, how would you get 5% even then? Wagner leaving, Putin pulling troops back to defend Moscow. Okay, yeah, those two. Still like 5% though? Why would you get 5%? Unless you would actually be counting like what? All the adult men in Russia maybe? Then it seems too high. How many adult men are in Russia in the first place? Zaporizhia. Wait, where did we have these ones? Multiple Berdyansk directions. Partial success on the Vadna-Pryutny line on the administrative border of Donetsk and Zaporizhia Oblast. Nearly reached lines in the Privilia, Zalizhanki direction out of Bakhmut. Continuing to exert pressure on Bakhmut's flanks. Hanna Malia reported they are advancing on Bakhmut's flanks, and Russian forces have transferred a large number of troops to the area. Varying degrees of success in southern Ukraine, advancing 1 kilometer on some days and advancing less on others. Yeah, so it seems like okay-ish. The whole thing seems okay-ish, personally. Russia and Ukraine lost like 200k troops, but more Ukrainians died. Russians just get arrested. I don't think you can make that claim though. I don't think there's a way to make that claim. Or like the Ukraine lost half their army in Bakhmut. You can't even make that claim. This is just what is this? Why are we getting like weird ass fucking chaos takes in chat? What the fuck is wrong with you people? None of this. Like this is all, you're just basing these shits based on vibes only, and that's it. None of this is actually like true. The fuck is wrong with you? But yeah, overall, I don't know. I trust Zaluzhny recently made a what was the word? Comment that the advances are going the way they are, the speed that they are, because they're trying to make sure that as many Ukrainian lives are kept, safe as possible. And he also has said that he is quite annoyed at the Western partners who are calling for Ukraine to, advance faster, but they refuse to actually supply them properly. So I think that was kind of based, and I'm feeling that is very correct. Yeah, cool. Which other sources? Give us the other sources. I demand the other source. Guys, Russia is only using 0.001% of their army, and they already totally wiped out the Ukrainian army and killed 200 NATO generals and destroyed 500 billion in US equipment. True, all of that. True. Mega Brothers, you will be getting timed out in chat unless you give us your source on Ukraine, on either Ukraine losing half their military in Bakhmut or Russia only using 5% of their troops. We want a source for either. Legit source for losses in Bakhmut. The thing is, is there a proper source? Not really. When it comes to the losses on the front lines, there's no proper source right now on anything of this. You can't know what the losses are on the front line. But when you make a really, really strong claim, like Ukraine lost half of their military in Bakhmut, or like Russia is only using 5% of the troops, you got that from somewhere. And this claim is so delusional and so out of reality, you had to get it from some idiot. So that's why I'm interested. Because, it's not like a thing that you make as a guess or something. It's a claim you make because you think you're actually educated on this. And it's a claim usually you make because you actually do follow some trash source. Oh, nice. I can just do it like this. How was the exact claim? How was the exact claim? Scott Ritter, the twice convicted pedophile. The pedophile. Your source is the pedophile. That's it. Just great. Great. Really like you.
Now suddenly we see all of these factories in Russia running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing ammunition, weapons,
No, it's like
all
my
these things
source
we
is
said they were
twice
going to run out
convicted
of very
pedophile.
quickly and could replenish. We said that no one would support Russia, that Russia would be isolated. Well,
Fresh
in
and
fact,
Fit.
I would argue that most of the world actually backs Russia against us.
Right, his source is
That
actually
we
like
and
the Fresh and Fit
Europeans are
podcast with
increasing
him. That would
on
be
an island all by
ridiculous.
ourselves. And Russia is not going to fall apart. Russia has become more cohesive. This is a state that rests on...
Your next message is going to be the source.
You got sent to Siberia.
I don't want your bullshit in chat. Your next message is going to be a link to the source. But also, yeah, Russia is becoming more cohesive,
on the
I
foundation of Orthodox Christianity and Russian ethnicity. Now, there are plenty of people inside Russia who are not ethnic Russians, those people are treated
I
very
wonder
well.
what
They are treated as equal
Scott
partners
Twitter
inside
thinks
Russia.
he uses
All you have to do is
make
look at
that
the Chechens.
stupid-ass claim.
You know,
He just
and
pulled
the
it off
Chechens
his
are
ass,
brilliant
didn't he?
soldiers, by the way. I keep hearing people say, well, they're not really that good. Well, you could not be more wrong. Those people are superb, and they are fiercely loyal. By the way, if you go back to the Tsarist period, every Tsarist army had contingents in it that were Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Chechens, others, Turkic peoples, Tartars, working
Oh,
with
that's
them
because PBD
and fighting
is
with them
really
against
into
whomever the
sucking
enemy
cocks,
was,
it
whether it was
seems.
the Ottomans or the Austrians or whomever. So the point is
Like
that
my man
Russia
interviewed the
is
Tate
more
brothers,
cohesive than
he's
we
now
are. If you're looking
interviewing
for
this
internal
piece of shit.
unrest, discontent, divisive
PBD
forces,
seems
you can
positively
find
stupid.
those in spades inside American society. But that's not the case in Russia at all.
So when you look at the economy-wise, one may say, yeah, they're doing better today. But even prior to the war, they had a big birth and death problem. I don't know if you've seen the numbers on their birth and death rate. If you want to pull that up, that's not a good look. The closest thing you can compare that to as a case study, they're having more people dying than being born. There's only one other country you can compare this to, and you know who that is. It's one of their allies. It's China. Those guys have a similar issue. India is a complete opposite. And we're not doing that great ourselves. But Russia's not a good place when it comes down to that. But I want to go back to the thought.
Well, wait a minute before you leave.
Yeah.
Putin agrees with you.
Yeah.
And Putin has tried very, very hard to reverse that. First thing he tried to do is to prevent the brain drain. Everybody with any talent or ability had been getting out of Russia since 1992. So he's tried to reverse that. I think he's had some success. He's tried to encourage people to have...
How, by the way, if you don't mind, how did he do the first one? I'm curious.
Basically by finding employment for scientists and engineers that otherwise had nowhere to go. He said, oh, we've got to find employment for these people so that we can keep them here. We have to reward them for their talent. I think he's done reasonably well there. When it comes to the rest of the economy...
Can we just, oh shit, I need to save that Solovyov interview. Solovyov, that clip in which he is pissed the fuck off because Russia has been engaged in a war for months, full-scale invasion for months, and still has not been able to make like just a drone, a satellite, anything that could help on the battlefield in months. The greatest minds of Russia, which were supposed to be working on like new military equipment, they made nothing. At one point, Solovyov specifically says that we should just take all of the oligarchs of Russia and take all of their yachts and then send their yachts over in outer space to use those as satellites instead, because no actual satellites have been made. Like the whole thing with him like stopping the brain drain by giving jobs to these people, that is laughable. That is just laughable. PBD. All right, how to say this? PBD brought up a Fox News article that said there were 250k Russian troop casualties, and this clown said, "No, it's like 50k." And PBD didn't know how to refute that, so he kind of hemmed and hawed. I think the thing is that PBD is useless. I think a lot of podcasters are having the job of a podcaster because what they do is they like being useless in real time, and that's it. Just useless to have a conversation with. The reason why he doesn't refute these points is because if he were to actually go and try to refute these points, if he were to actually be like, hey, what's your source for this? When you say 50k, what are you basing this on? If he actually does try to do that, he is going to be losing a part of his audience, because his audience so far, like you've seen the types of people he interviews States, he interviews Peterson. This man is gathering a following of just imbeciles. He can't question the narrative. He's not allowed to do so. So I think that's why he doesn't question the whole thing with like the troop. I don't think is that he doesn't know how to refute this. I think that he is aware that if he tries to refute this, it's going to seem like he is supporting the West. Yeah. Ritter? Oh no.
How can you right now don't have any air power? How can you attack when you have no air power? The answer is you can't. The Ukrainians don't have sufficient artillery. How can you attack when you don't have that? They have no air defense, which means Russian helicopters have a field day on the battlefield. We're slaughtering the Ukrainians before they even get to the first line. The Russians are slaughtering the Ukrainians before they get to the first line of defense. Right now, don't have any air power.
Oh shit. He goes, oh, what a piece of shit. What a piece of shit. Oh, damn.
Economy, turning around this attitude that why should I bring 2 or 3 children into a world that's dominated by alcohol?
1 hour 46. Oh, someone has to be at work at that time.
Has turned out to be pretty tough. I think he's made some progress there. I think this war is going to help him enormously because I think the war
Definitely
is awakening
not the first sex
a
offender.
sense of Russian identity that is far, far stronger and greater than anything we thought existed. All you have to do is talk to the people that are inside Russia and ask Russians what they think. Everybody says, well, they're all afraid of Putin, so they're not going to tell you the truth. That's not true. That's just not true. And we're hearing as exactly what I said. Russia is closer, united more today than I think it has been in at least 30 years or 40 years.
Okay, so then as a competitor, whoever you go up against, you're going to do...
Can we just point out, there's a part of this that I just love, and it's how often they make my Russophobic claims instead of me. Because so many people like to be like, there's hope for Russia, there's hope for Russian citizens. Oh yeah, I know the polls say that Putin is supported by 80% of the population or whatever, but the polls may be faked. Maybe there's still hope for Russians. And then I'm like, nah, Russians are just fucking trash, all of them. And people call me Russophobic. But then you have Russian supporters like this idiot coming out and being like, nah, the polls are actually real. People of Russia actually do support Putin. He's on my side on this, okay? He's on my side on this. He's accepting that they're all trash people. It's just that he's not saying it out loud, as I would, because he has tiny little balls. But it's basically the same fucking opinion. It's the same fucking opinion. I, too, think a lot of them support what Putin is doing. I too think a lot of them support the invasion. I do think this is used to unite a lot of them, mostly because Russian nationalism is based in imperialism. So, makes them feel good to think that they could be having the Russian Empire again. But you have fucking base in this.
Better if you put them as being overly calculating, meaning it's naive to just say it's a simplistic war. Let's just do this. This is what's going to happen. We're going to be this, right? Okay. For me, sometimes how an enemy forces you to do something to come out and say, see, I told you this is what they wanted to do the entire time. So, for example, I want to get your feedback on this. So, NATO is trying to do whatever they can to get Ukraine to be part of NATO. No, that's not what we're trying to do. No, that's exactly what they're trying to do. And this is why they promised us they would never do this, and now they're going to be doing this. Nope, that's not what they're doing. So he's pushing. And then all of a sudden, the article comes off from Guardian. If you want to show that article real quick, I think it's Guardian. You know which one I'm talking about. NATO accelerating the membership. Yep. NATO allies back fast-track membership for Ukraine. Says cleverly, U.S. Foreign Secretary says Ukraine has evolved quickly as Zelensky tells summit it can be engine of green growth. So all of this time that they're talking about this is now leading to, we have to use this as an opportunity to bring him into NATO. Then Putin's going to come out and say, well, I told you guys this was the entire intention, this is why I'm doing X, Y, Z, because I knew you guys were doing this. Is he that calculating of a guy that he's forcing his opponent and his enemy to expose their hand? Or is it just accidentally that this happened because he didn't think the war...
Expose their hand? Expose their hands? What? Ukraine's being attacked, shelled by Russians daily, who kill their civilians, destroy civilian infrastructure. NATO is like, hey, maybe we should finally let Ukraine come closer to NATO membership. Not even get NATO membership, come closer to NATO membership. Because we owe them that much for betraying them previously. He calls it exposing their hand? How the fuck was that exposing anyone's hand? Why is that a term you would be using for this? How the fuck is he seeing that?
War was going to last this long.
I hesitate.
You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I do. And I think the man's highly intelligent. And there is no doubt in my mind that he views what you just said as a welcome development.
No, I'm actually interested at this point.
Saying, this is what it's really all about.
I'm kind of invested at this point.
He still thought there was a degree of goodwill in the West
No Fuckers,
that he could exploit. And there is none. That's what
blood pressure, bad.
I think because of his experience watching various administrations, remember he met with Bush, he subsequently met with Obama, and ultimately with Trump. Each time he was trying to understand us, trying to understand what we were about.
Can I just point out this? That he just talked about Putin meeting with 3 different USA presidents. Which, were presidents during his time of hoarding the power in Russia.
And I think he listened to what was said in private, and he convinced himself that these people really aren't the enemy. You know, they are unreasonably obsessed with or fascinated with NATO, which he doesn't see any reason for. I mean, quite frankly, you know, since he had, one of the things that's very funny is people say, well, he was going to invade Eastern Europe. Well, wait a minute. You told me back in March that his army was small and incapable, and now you're telling me he was always going to invade. I mean, which is it? It's a bunch of nonsense. So he wasn't going to invade. He wanted to do business with everybody badly.
I don't
Because
even
he
know.
knows that if Russia
tell
is
you
to
to this
continue to
bullshit.
develop and grow, he needs technology.
He actually unironically made me so angry over this. I kind of just want to click to no fuckers video. Oh, that was such a stupid thing to say. That was such a stupid thing to say. Oh yeah, well, you say he wanted to invade Eastern Europe, but then you said previously that his military is small. Who? Who is you? You're speaking about who? Not to mention that with Russian previous, how would we say this? Military experience? The way Russia has been doing wars so far is what they did is they go balls deep into a country unable to defend itself and they butcher the shit out of it. Okay, so like when it comes to Georgia, I don't know if you looked at like military of Georgia. Georgia's military right now very strong, very fucking strong. You couldn't go and invade Georgia right now without suffering some strong losses. Georgia's military back in 2008, basically nothing. Basically nothing. They had nothing to defend themselves. Russians came in, butchered them. That's it. Same thing with Chechnya. Same thing Ukraine 2014. Okay, they were not fucking prepared for this. Same thing as what they're doing in Syria right now. What are they doing? They're fucking killing civilians. That's what Russians like to do, just kill civilians. They openly said this is their goal with shelling civilian infrastructure and shelling civilian buildings in Ukraine. They're trying to weaken the nation by killing a bunch of their civilians. This doesn't mean that their military is not dangerous. Not at all. But like in a conventional war, in a proper war with NATO, a military like this, they couldn't stand. They would not be able to win. They were not able to win against American troops. In other parts of the world, they would not be allowed to win that. So like compared to American troops, compared even to like NATO troops, yeah, they do seem useless, but compared to countries which they actually go and attack, they are very strong. They are very fucking powerful. When we say that they were going to invade Eastern Europe, like what? Do you think they were going to invade fucking Poland? No, they would suffer a lot of losses in Poland. They would go to like Moldova or something. They would go to Baltics. They would go to countries which can't defend themselves. There were some Georgians who fought Russians invading in 2008. Yeah, they got destroyed very, very quickly. Yeah. Georgia did improve their military strongly after that, though. So Georgia is doing well right now. But like back in 2008, bro, their military was sad. It was just sad. Without NATO, I think Russia would roll over most European countries. Though also, I think we could make a claim, but this is like going to alternative universe, you know, thinking. But I think without NATO, maybe European countries would be forced to pay for their own defense. But then you would have a situation where this would carry losses from like other positions. So I wonder how that would be going. You know, like they would not be able to invest as much as they are now investing in improvement in other areas because they would be having to invest a lot in defense. So, just like, holy shit.
So the technology that he wants is in Germany. So Germany is enormously important to Russia.
I wish we had European Union army.
Well, now he's turning away.
What are we
going
to do with Hungarians, though?
Chinese, Indian, and other economic powers
They're going
for
to
German
shit all over it.
cooperation. But the bottom line is that I think Putin miscalculated up front. There was no goodwill. He thought there was. And
Also
now he knows
bullshit.
it. So what are you going to do about it, Mr. Putin? And I think the Russians are all standing around saying, okay, we like you. You've done a great job.
No, he
You know,
hasn't.
the army is ready. It's up and running. It's now large enough and strong enough to do what needs to be done. Mr. Putin, what are you going to do?
What needs to be done? For which reason?
Yeah, and you know, makes sense. We're going to see how much of that was, you know, wasn't expecting it. He was just kind of going in to do it, and then now all of a sudden the hands are being shown. But let's look at the other side. You know, the other side is anytime It happens in sports. It happens in families. It happens in companies. Oh, look what's going on in Amazon. 6 of Jeff Bezos' C-suite executives all resigned on the same day. You know, hey, look at the Elon Musk today with Twitter. 1,250 employees resigned. That place is a civil war today, right? And they'll say things like this. And us as readers, we're not in it. We're like, oh, wow, shit's hitting the fan in, you know, Twitter. Shit's hitting the fan in this place. If you look at it with Wagner Group, okay, Wagner Group, or whatever they want to call themselves, these guys come out, and he's a billionaire himself. He's done well for himself. And, hey, our goal is to do this, and our goal is to do that. And then story comes out saying Putin
European
disappears
demographics,
after
how?
Wagner coup, chaos, Daily Mail. Russian President Vladimir Putin has not been seen publicly since he addressed the nation regarding the Wagner Group failed putsch amidst rumors of Putin's flight to Tver region. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, wonderful guy, by the way, noted cracks emerging in the Russian administration. Putin, in a pre-recorded message, termed the Wagner troops moved as
but also US is
stab in the back of our
benefiting, so.
troops around the people of Russia. What we are facing now is a treason. Okay. And then obviously talks about who Yevgeny is and what he's done, all this stuff, which I'd love for you to talk about that as well. When that happens from the outside, it's very easy for the enemy to say, look what's going on over there. Even his people don't support his decision. He's about to be replaced. It's about to be very quickly, like the last time this happened. We saw this 25 years ago when this took place. Within a week, somebody came in and took over Russia. That's exactly what's going to be happening, right? Opposing message of how you said this thing's going to be done in Ukraine very quickly. The other side said, he's about to fall in the next week. Watch, this thing's going to happen very quickly. That's not a good look when that happens, where the leader of a country has to leave because they're worried about what's going to happen to him. So one, from the optics standpoint. Two, from he's got an 89% approval rating. If he does, why are people going against him? And there's clips of people supporting Yevgeny saying, hey, thank you for doing this. Optics matter.
Well, the people that were thanking Yevgeny Prigozhin were not thanking him for rising up in some sort of uprising. They were thanking him and the Wagner Group for their heroic performance on behalf of the Russian people. And those same people that were doing that also said, you know, we love Putin. We love our president.
Wait, what? They were thanking him for the When was this filmed? June 29th? What is he talking about? Like events previous to the coup? What is he talking about? Does he think the coup was happening and people were watching Prigozhin like going to Moscow and they were like, hey Prigozhin, I just want to say we love Putin, but like thank you for what you did to when you took over Bakhmut. But like don't go touch Putin. We love Putin very much. But like thank you for this thing you did previously. How is he?
I think people, first of all, made a mistake of assuming that what was happening was an uprising. It never was. And
who has that clip of Prigozhin just being like, yeah, we're going to Moscow to deal with the root of this issue? What? Yeah, my best comrade. Yeah, it's this one. It was this one, wasn't it? It was that one. Why was the war even needed? Like he's going through the whole thing of like, no, we didn't even need to have this war. Where's the first part of the war? I thought it would be just up there, but it wasn't. Yeah, going over the current state of affairs, but he just calls into question all of Russian lies about this. And then this man like looks at it and he's like, hey, yeah, you guys know what this is? You know what this is? It was Prigozhin marching to Moscow, I guess, to thank Putin.
Которые воровали деньги у жителей Донбасса, которые находились в непризнанных республиках ЛНР и ДНР. В этом ЛНР и ДНР существовали корпуса народной милиции, которые в случае нападения украинцев должны были дать достойный отпор. Однако эти корпуса не существовали по факту. Было минимальное количество бойцов и определенное количество генералов просто распиливали эти деньги.
Yeah, but the whole thing, you're like getting the whole thing. He's bitching about the entirety of the leadership.
Prigozhin made that very clear.
No, he didn't.
We'll learn more in the future.
He did. No, we will not. We know enough. Shut the fuck up. he didn't make it very clear that this is not a coup attempt. He did make it very clear that he thinks, how was it? I remember Thompson being very, very loud about this, because the way Prigozhin presented the information was that Putin was misguided by officials around him. So it was like, oh yeah, Putin was listening to people around him, and then they made him think that this invasion was possible to do successfully in the way he was doing it. So it wasn't technically Putin's fault, because it was actually the fault of officials around him lying to him, basically. But he never clarified it was not a coup attempt.
We know at this point is the following. First of all, Putin didn't flee anywhere. Putin wasn't afraid of anything. He has 30,000 troops. He did take 10,000 in the Ministry of Interior Forces. These are very, very heavily armed police, and moved them into various areas because they had intelligence already on many Ukrainian terrorist cells. They simply went out there and eliminated these. That was simply a case of let's go do it, get it over with in the event that there's something going on between them and this group in the Wagner group. It turns out that Putin did talk directly to Prigozhin. That came out today. Assuming that's true, he claimed that he was talking to Lukashenko, who's the president of Belarus. Now, if that's in fact true and Putin talked to him, then the whole thing ended very quickly. And the argument for ending it, according to Prigozhin, was we don't want to shed any Russian blood. So then the question is, why did you do it? And one of the key reasons, I think, that there are two possibilities. One is, I think Prigozhin was speaking for a lot of people who were very dissatisfied with Gerasimov and Shoigu, because they feel strongly that this Ukrainian war should be brought to a close. Let's stop it. The only way to stop it is to advance, to attack, and crush the enemy. And their view is that...
By the way, who remembers Dugin? Who remembers Dugin a few days ago? When he was like, hey guys, we need to get this war over. So how was it? Let's go and invade Ukraine stronger, and then also let's start a pro-Russian uprising in Lviv. Bullshit like that. Just his absolute stupid take, as if he has not been following the Russian failures for a few recent months at all. Now man's pretending like they have enough troops to do a proper escalation. Yeah, he was like, oh, we need to start playing without rules, as if they have been following the rules so far. Hey, yeah, brothers, we're still expecting your sources. So you are free for your next message to be a link, either proving that only 5% of Russian troops are currently committed to the war, or that 50% of Ukrainian troops have been lost in Bakhmut.
There's so little
How
left
long?
now
I don't
on
know.
the Ukrainian side. Why are
45
we waiting?
minutes.
Let's get this
More,
done.
I guess.
The longer we wait,
Gotta go
the
to
greater
work.
the possibility that NATO
And also
and its
read your
friends
sources
will
that
find an excuse
you
to
will be
intervene,
sending.
and we don't want that to happen. Putin's taken the position, well, I'm holding back just in case NATO intervenes. In other words, I've got hundreds of thousands of troops. I've got a huge strategic reserve. If they're dumb
And
enough to
Isaiah
intervene,
Palmer
then
buying
I've got
it.
that, on hand that I can employ. That's a debate that is unfolding. We're hearing about a shakeup in the Russian high command. You'll recall that Putin had a meeting with some journalists, a small group of them, and he talked to them for 3 hours, something you never hear anybody in the United States do. Any politician, that is. And he was very straightforward and frank. We had the transcripts, and one of the things that came up was a discussion about the senior leadership. And one of the journalists said, we're concerned because we're getting feedback from a lot of soldiers that we can do better, that we need more aggressive, more capable leaders. And he said, I think there's something to that. And I've got to look into it. I've got to look at it.
Next time you come
I
back,
think we're going to
I
see a
expect a
shakeup in the high
source.
command. Now, there's an unsubstantiated rumor out there that the commander-in-chief of Russian airborne forces is now taking over the theater.
Yeah, pro-Russian
I don't
Lviv, yeah.
know. Haven't seen it confirmed.
Dugin
anywhere.
doesn't know what the fucking
That could be
city
the
is.
case. Also, in the same report, Gerasimov is returning to his essential duties as chief of the general staff. He's no longer going to run anything in connection with the war in Ukraine. Shoigu seems to be Shoigu. He's Putin's friend. I don't think Putin holds him, because he's a civilian, he's not a professional soldier, directly responsible for anything that's not right. So I think we'll see some shakeup in the high command, and that may foreshadow some offensive action. Now, here's another theory, that this was a carefully constructed show for the West. To convince everybody that Russia was falling apart and see who said what.
I don't even know what
I
that
don't
would
buy
be,
that
to be honest.
I buy the first argument. Yeah. And
No,
people say,
you know what's
my
gonna
gosh,
be
how
his
could this happen?
source. I figured it out.
George Marshall.
You know what's gonna be his source for it being a Putin psyop? It's gonna be the clip of was it Non-Smoker? It's gonna be a clip of him saying that Wagner is now close to Kyiv because they are in Belarus. It's going to be that one. I'm betting my fucking life on this. That idiot thinks it was a psyop because Wagner is now, what was it, 100 kilometers from Kyiv or whatever, because they're in fucking Belarus. Which one got arrested? I think it was Surovikin, if you think of Surovikin now. I was kind of out of it. But Surovikin apparently got arrested.
Relieved 32 corps and division commanders during less than 3 years of fighting during World War II. Large numbers of senior officers were removed and changed and moved around and given new commands. This is not unusual in war. It happens. If it doesn't happen, you're in a lot of trouble.
Africa
One of the
operations
complaints that I've had about the U.S.
left.
military and the Army in particular is no change. Why no change? Well, it's a stagnant pool of people and
Same thing
talent.
with
You
Syrian
need fresh
operation.
blood, fresh eyes.
They
and
need
I'm
a
sure
government
that
on their side.
Putin has discovered that's required in the Russian military, and I think we'll see it. Beyond that, I can't speculate anymore because I don't know, and I haven't talked to anybody who does.
You know, the whole thing about, look, if we keep going the way we're going, this NATO thing's going to get done with Ukraine, and they're going to become a member. We got to kind of slow our roll the way we're going. Look, whether they go hard or go soft, what do you think are the chances that Ukraine's eventually going to be part of NATO?
Non-existent.
Non-existent. Yes.
Wait, what is your username, Trump? Are you genuine like a Trump fan, or are you memeing being a Trump fan? Because I would love to hear, like, I know there's Trump fans who support Ukraine. I know there's not many because Trump fans seem to be stupid on this. But I would love to hear, like, their takes on Trump claiming he can end this war in, like, a day. I've never seen someone, like, properly analyze that stupid-ass statement.
But no. And this is
We're
the
just
problem. We
gonna go,
don't seem
it's
to
Trump.
understand that if we continue to insist that whatever remains of Ukraine become part of NATO, we're going to see hundreds of thousands of Russian troops on the Polish border. They're just going to roll right across Ukraine. It will not.
See, also bullshit. Just bullshit. First of all, we insist. Ukraine wants to join NATO. Who is insisting? Who is insisting in any sort of a way? Second of all, Russian troops on border of Poland, if they could reach the border of Poland, they would have done it. They can't do so. Where the fuck is he making these claims from? This interview is just like dumb dude speaking to another dumb dude, and that's it. Just bullshit.
Until they hit the Polish border and the Romanian border. That's very clear.
How?
That's not what he wants. And and I keep trying to explain this to people. If you know anything about Western Ukraine, I grew up with people from Western Ukraine. They do not want anything to do with the Russians. And Putin knows that. He doesn't want to run the place, doesn't want to govern it. He just doesn't want it to be a platform for attack against Russia.
No one planned an attack
to turn it into. I
against
also think
Russia.
the majority of Ukrainians that are still there, and maybe even the majority that are away, they may not like Russians,
Oh,
but I don't think
okay,
they support
makes
this
sense.
war.
Makes sense.
And the reason I say that is
that's
if you go
fair.
back to the election that brought Zelensky to power, when he was picked up from nowhere as a comedian and sponsored by Kolomoisky, who's a very powerful oligarch in Ukraine, he ran on a peace platform. He said, if I'm elected, I'll make peace with Russia. Well, virtually everybody, something like 89% went out and voted for it. They wanted peace with Russia. There were only a very few people in the far west of Ukraine that didn't support that. So I don't think Zelensky is by any stretch of the imagination as widely supported as people think. And, you talk
Bullshit. He ran on a platform of peace with Russia. He did get votes for peace with Russia. And that is exactly what he has been trying to do when he was the president. It's exactly what he was trying to do. So he tried to signal to Russians even more obviously, even though it was already obvious that no one's going to do anything to fucking Russians inside Ukraine. But he was trying to be even more open about this. He did the whole speeches. You guys have seen the speeches of him saying that he himself speaks Russian. A lot of Ukrainians speak Russian. Russian will never get banned in Ukraine, stuff like that. All of it like very, very, very fucking just obvious fucking talking points. He did lessen funding to Ukrainian military. Lessened funding to Ukrainian military. He accepted the Steinmeier formula, which was seen as a loss by Ukrainian nationalists. They did whole protest about it because he accepted the formula, and they were like, oh, if you accept the formula, this means you are okay with Russia doing referendums in areas it occupied. And he was like, well, if we have a ceasefire and Russia actually pulls out the troops, yeah, I have signed to have a referendums. I very much doubt the referendums are going to happen because Russia is very unlikely to pull the what am I lying about? because Russia is very unlikely to pull the troops out. And that's exactly what happened. They never pulled the troops out. They never demilitarized the area. They never actually respected the ceasefire. So the whole thing just... He's doing the thing with like Zelensky was running on a peace formula, which is even like more fucking heartbreaking. If you guys remember that interview where Zelensky talks about how Ukraine has been respecting the ceasefires and the Russians have still been shooting at them. I have seen some reports. By the way, I wanted to ask Ukrainians about this because I need like your sources on this. What are the reports of like Russians shooting at Ukrainians while Zelensky was the president? And then him attempting to cover up these murders as these officials just like dying from drug usage or whatever. Because I've seen a lot of Ukrainians recently mention it, and I'm not sure where that is coming from, but also I'm very, very bad with Googling in Russian, and I had no time this week. I might actually have some time tomorrow, so this is just like me trying to bypass it, because tomorrow is my first day this week of me having no work and having proper sleep. So listen, I'm just happy. Yeah, I would love to see the source. I would love to see the source. I don't know where they're getting that. I've seen like 3-4 accounts at least mention it recently. So I'm weirded out by it. You have friends on the front line? Damn, holy shit, I hope they're safe. Hope they're safe. Hope they're on the... good side. But yeah, I don't know if they would be too interested in looking through the news, but if they would, I would love to see it. Yeah, because mostly I don't really know where they're getting it from. I've just seen them claim it. And Googling in Ukrainian takes me a lot of time because I have to like go to the translator and then everything. So I'm planning to do it tomorrow because truly tomorrow I'm going to have a few hours free, but not this. There is good versus bad side.
Now, he has press
there
gangs,
absolutely is good versus
groups of
bad
people
side.
who go out and forcibly drag Ukrainians into the Ukrainian military because they need manpower. He's now doing that in the far western portions of Ukraine where he said he wouldn't do it, in Galicia and in the Carpathian, what used to be called the Carpathian Military District. Ukrainians are leaving. Ukrainians are moving out. There are reports now that Ukrainians are actually stoning and in some cases shooting at these press gangs from the Ukrainian army in western Ukraine, that they don't want to go to war. They don't want to fight. We're getting reports that platoon and company-size elements down in southern Ukraine are defecting. They're simply saying, look, we've had it. We can't do this anymore, and they're coming across and surrendering. And very, very smartly, the Russians from the beginning have treated all of the Ukrainian prisoners very, very well. They have not harmed them. They have not abused them or brutalized them. They facilitated prisoner exchanges, whereas we've got videotape of Ukrainian soldiers kneecapping with AK-47s, Russian knees of soldiers that are in captivity. We have video of them executing because the Ukrainian soldiers that did actually posted it on YouTube.
Oh, he's doing the thing.
He's run a very good campaign in the sense that he's made it very clear we don't want to kill you. We're not really the enemy. We want to.
He's doing the thing with like oh, what was it? Cringelot had a really, really good way to say this. Fuck, I don't remember what exactly the word was. But it was basically, I remember the message that came around with it, which was like, hey, we could both like go to Telegram right now and we could get videos of both sides doing war crimes and we could like send it to each other until the end of the day. You know, we could both do that and we would just never accomplish anything with that conversation. But luckily, usually people don't base their views on geopolitics. Based off like actions of few extremists, because you will always be able to find those videos, right? Usually that is not how you do proper analysis of the situation, and usually that is not what you are supposed to be basing your mind on, because if you look at any country right now, you could find extremist actions being taken in one way or another, but this is not usually what you should be basing your fucking mind on. Russia Today? I guess, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I do wonder, though. I do wonder if it's... We'll have to look into it. Multiple verified prison of war execution videos. Yeah, that's true. That's true, though, now that you mention it. Has my man seen the beheading video? Probably no.
And it has had an effect inside Ukraine that we are not hearing about. These things are not reported to us in the Western media because it undermines the narrative.
Did you see the Wall Street Journal story about a few days ago of Wagner?
Also, one of my, like... Oh, shit, I'm so salty about the Western media thing. It's always presented as like the Western media doesn't report this, as if we can't just speak to Ukrainians. And that's what I'm kind of angry about very often. It's always like, oh, yeah, the Western media doesn't say you the things in Ukraine are like this. Western media doesn't tell you things in Ukraine are like that. As if most of us are getting our opinions on this, on the population stance on this from Western media, not from actual Ukrainians. It kind of weirds me out, because what he's talking about right now are the population opinions, right? Why the hell would you get those from Western media instead of getting them from actual Ukrainians willing to speak to you? Because there's a lot. There's a lot of Ukrainians right now. There's a lot of Ukrainian activists being very, very open about speaking their mind right now, trying very, very hard to share their message to the world. Why would you instead make up a whole narrative and then also bitch about it not being shown to Western media when we can know how the country is moving and what the majority of what the opinion of the majority is just by speaking to Ukrainians?
Mutiny revives U.S. fears over control of Russia's nuclear weapons. The Wagner paramilitary group failed insurrection in Russia led by Yevgeny has reignited concerns over control of Russia's nuclear arsenal. As U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken put it, anytime you have a major country like Russia that has signs of instability, that's something of concern. Despite these tensions, U.S. officials stated that they detected no irregular activities or changes in alert levels related to Russia's nuclear forces. Is that a real threat, or is that just a story to exaggerate what's really going on to put fear in the American people?
Absolutely.
Second one.
Yes, absolutely. You're not hearing anything truthful from this administration. And the media is conspiring with the administration to misinform the public. It's simple truth. The same thing's happening in Western Europe. Nobody is being told the truth. The only way to get the truth is to talk to people who are over there on the ground. Fortunately, I have some people who are willing to do that and pass me information. And we forget that there are people in Poland that have grandparents who are Ukrainians living in eastern Ukraine. We forget that there are people who are Slovakian, some are Czech, who actually have brothers-in-law or cousins working in banks.
Lame the Fool, your next message in chat is going to be pinpointing exactly what you claim I lied about. Or you will get timed out for 5 minutes until you figure it the fuck out.
In Moscow. In other words, there are people over there that are telling the truth. Yeah. I just don't think we're getting it, and I don't see any evidence that that's going to change anytime soon. And that worries me, because if we continue to push this false narrative and we make it abundantly clear that there will be no negotiation, which is what we're effectively saying. Right now, Putin has the following choice. You can pull all your forces out of Ukraine.
Let's say
you can prepare to commit suicide in public and remove yourself from office, and then we'll talk.
Figure it out.
I mean, that's absurd. There's no chance of any of that happening. So where are we headed? I think we're headed to lots of Russian troops on the Polish border, unless someone wakes up in Europe.
Who the fuck lied to him about this?
France, where those governments are very fragile right now. I think,
like, they're fucking losing ground. They've been holding in Ukraine since like 2014. We're getting reports from Russian side, because Ukraine is still fucking trying to practice silence, which just makes me disheartened as fuck. But we're getting reports on Russians that their positions are being attacked, and Ukrainians may be breaking into areas that Russia has been holding since 2014. What the fuck makes this guy believe that Russia is able to reach Polish border? How the hell? How the hell?
Scholz's approval rating is about 32 or 33%. If they get rid of him,
He's
and you
not
get a new coalition involving the Alternative for Germany, and maybe even the left, on the far left, those two groups are all opposed to this war. And there's no support in the German population for going to war with Russia. If you ask anybody in Germany, are you prepared to suit up and go to the Eastern Front?
I don't really have questions for the soldiers. I had questions regarding the news.
If that were to happen, then Putin would have someone he could talk to in Berlin. And Berlin then could conceivably
I wondered about
us out of this
specifically.
dead-end road. But that hasn't happened yet. And again, I think that's something else that Putin is watching for. I think that's another reason.
If that's what you are referring to. But then again,
back.
I don't really know if they would be
Have
able
Russia and
to
Germany
share a
grown
lot
close
of,
over energy deals and pipelines? And there was this.
I don't know if it would be a good use of anyone's
thanks
time
to the Russians
to make
turning
them
off
look
the pipeline
through the
as part of the
news.
Ukraine conflict. These poor
To
Germans are
find
freezing in the
sources
winter.
for me,
And so aren't they
especially if
fairly
you're talking to people who are actually in the
times,
pipeline.
fairly dependent on Russia, and probably in a position where it might not be a bad idea to be the moderating voice.
In 1914, Russia and Germany were each other's principal trading partners. In other words, when the war broke out, they were already each other's principal trading partners. Interestingly enough, the British were entirely dependent on the optics industry in Germany for all of its military applications.
No, because what I was wondering about is specifically the Ukrainian claims of Zelensky covering up deaths of soldiers killed by Russian troops. That was what I was wondering about. That the reason I asked Ukrainians in chat is because I assumed Ukrainians are, I don't know, knowledgeable about like proper sources in Ukraine better than I am. So that was the whole thing. Don't know how much it would make sense to ask someone on the front line that. I mean, it would, I guess, but still. If Russia will be on the Polish border by this summer. Oh yeah, I don't know what happens if Russia has only 5% of their army in Ukraine, because I don't know what the number is based on, because our dude has not given us sources. Our dude has ignored our questions for sources. Hey, by the way, I need to run for a second. Be right back.
I mean, these things happen. Sometimes dumb ideas become policy without any.
I don't. I leave you with our TVP. Because I actually have a heart. Be right back.
Hello and welcome to TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. On one of his recent shows, Vladimir Solovyov spoke with the commander of the 19th Motor Rifle Division, Major General Roman Vyazovsky. We definitely think you should take a listen.
Командир 19-й мотострелковой дивизии генерал-майор Роман Юрьевич Вязовский. Но вы себя чувствуете генералом больше наступа или генералом, знаешь, как Ртищев с Суворовым беседует?
Ну, понятно.
Да, и Суворов говорит, а что такое ретриада? Он говорит, не могу знать. Как? Мой лучший генерал не знает. Выбегает, говорит, я, говорит, суворовский генерал, я отступать не приучен.
Но отступать это точно не приучен, это 100%. Я со своей базой Мариуполь брал. Вот мы когда, прежде чем туда приехать, мы туда приезжали, я как раз мы как раз только недавно зашли туда, я впереди был. То есть мы там наступали нормально. Потери, конечно, были. Все это. То есть в зависимости от задачи. Но вот это отступать, это вообще не для нас.
Какая война по счету?
Какая? В Дагестане, Сирии, Украине, 3-я, 4-я.
Уже со счету.
Вои.
Везде. Ну, хотя и скромничаешь, но родину наградами ты отметил?
Ну, конечно.
Ну, конечно. Чего есть?
100%. Оренбургство есть. Ну, это за Мариуполь. Это когда еще вот на начале.
Solovyev? Is this? No. He's also bold, but it's not this one.
Подписываю пачками для полков, для дивизий.
If you're thinking of Surovikin.
Подписываю там, по командирам дивизии уж.
I don't know what Surovikin is doing. Do we have some news on Surovikin?
Now, we particularly liked how he said we aren't accustomed to retreating.
No, I guess not.
No? So what happened in Kyiv? Oh, and Snake Island? And finally, how did the Russians leave?
Oh, Surovikin is an honorary Wagner member. Did you know about that?
Well, the Russian propaganda apparatus would rather everyone think it was a goodwill gesture. Like the goodwill gesture the Russians are doing in eastern Ukraine right now. If that's the case, then best of luck with that. In the interview, the general was also reminiscing about taking the city of Mariupol, the same Mariupol where they killed thousands of innocents, including children. People who were living their lives in peace before one bloody dictator decided to liberate them. And for this, for destroying lives, families, cities, they give him a medal, in true Russian fashion. The key takeaway from this video is that it shows you who the Russians really are. The war in Ukraine is Vyazovsky's fourth.
Wait, what was the... Oh. I think he's saying it gives him like an excuse to send... to contact his friends on the front line. I think that's what it is. But yeah, the whole thing of my interest is just the cover-up of supposed casualties of Ukrainian soldiers, because I wonder, you know what I wonder about? I wonder if it's one of those drama points created by Ukrainian opposition to Zelensky before the start of the full-scale invasion, because he did have opposition, especially when it came to him signing the Steinmeier There were people who did huge protests against it because they claimed that signing the Steinmeier means that Zelensky is giving up the areas currently occupied by Russia, and it means that he is kind of aiding Russia in their invasion. I didn't really see it like that. I looked into his government's offices, into his office's comments on the Steinmeier formula. I don't think they saw it like that either. I truly think that they had the opinion that Russia is not going to support their end of the deal anyways, so no referendums are likely going to happen, but like we still are trying to kind of reach out, right, and try to solve this in some sort of a peaceful way. That is how they saw it, that is how they commented on it, but you still did have a position which was blaming him for abandoning Ukrainians in occupied areas. And when it comes to covering up the deaths of Ukrainian soldiers, I feel like it might be part of the same thing, which is like trying to present him in a strongly bad light, trying to present him as too weak on the whole situation, and trying to present him as too much of a friend of Russians.
He was involved in every conflict that Russia
Nudes from
started against other
Prigozhin, holy
countries.
shit.
At this point, he's been killing innocents for years.
I would rather be arrested,
Do you think
probably.
he has any compassion left? He's Putin's obedient puppet of war. When the Tsar sicks him on a sovereign country and tells him to kill his people, he does as he's told. People like him are professional killers with compassion long replaced by the desire to kill and take what's not theirs. Pro-Kremlin correspondents have recently posted a video of Putin speaking with the public in the Republic of Dagestan. But was it the real Putin? Just look how happy he is touching the common folk. Meanwhile, just 2 weeks ago, propagandists had to quarantine for 14 days to get anywhere the meeting with the big guy. Which Putin do you think this was? The one who was in Mariupol, or the Vlad who made that?
Hey, by the way, what's
visit
with War
to
Gonzo?
Sevastopol? Personally, our bet is that it's the Putin from the Victory Day parade in Moscow. When Bunker Grandpa made his entrance, you'd think it was the Beatles that made an appearance. That's what the response of his audience would suggest, as young women were losing their minds and screaming their approval. Comments are sporting an imperial.
More that so. War Gonzo did a report a few hours ago. AFU advanced up to 1.5 kilometers deep and up to 6 kilometers wide near Robotine. AFU advanced towards Prutne from Levadne. Along the MO4, AFU took new positions. AFU advanced near Klishivka and along the MO3 north of Bakhmut. So we got new stuff everywhere. Nice. Armed forces of Ukraine. But nice. So we're good. We're doing good. We're doing good, right? If he is, what's the word? Admitting it, I guess we're doing good. After we deal with Ukraine, Kazakhstan is next. Oh shit, yeah.
Там до сих пор, блядь, знаете,
что ты против... Подожди, ты что-то против казахов имеешь?
Что против вас иметь?
Hey, shit, I need to add a new day.
Ну, вообще, к вам много вопросов, конечно.
Не, давай пообщаемся на эту тему, мне аж интересно.
Давай.
Только не переключайся. Давай договоримся не переключаться, хорошо? Нет, ты изначально про казахов что сказал, что это выдуманная нация или что-то в этом роде?
Казахи? Конечно, блядь.
То есть нас выдумал кто? Ну, просто нет, давай я хочу узнать.
Вас выдумали, вашу вообще страну выдумали коммунисты.
То есть вообще, ну, типа, не было вот юрт, когда казахи путешествовали, кочевали, этой нации не было, да?
Нет, нация была, государства не было.
Ты говоришь, что нас коммунисты придумали, потом говоришь, что нация была.
Государство, да. У вас то же самая история, что с Украиной, абсолютно. Вы в один. Сейчас с Украиной разберемся, а потом вами займемся, конечно.
Ты хочешь с нами заняться еще?
Не я, это вынужденная мера будет.
No, they're actually brainwashed. Whenever you see a Russian saying something horrible, and it makes you think, damn, are they actually this full of shit? The answer is yes.
Modern Russia has
all of them, every single one of them, yes. Just full of shit. you see some of their youth and you're like, wow, is it possible for young people to be so stupid? Surely this is some sort of a Western propaganda made to look Russians look stupid. No, it isn't. They're genuinely like that. Every single one of them. Like, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation here with like a Russian who wasn't exactly the same. Whenever we get them in chat, they are exactly the same. Every single fucking time. They do sometimes get like smarter entrances. Like you remember last one we had who was like, many Russians don't actually support the war and I am one of them. And then you ask them who Crimea belongs to and they can't answer. All of them pieces of shit. Yeah, I don't even know. That's a good point. I don't even know if it's brainwashing. I think they're choosing to be this way. I wouldn't blame it on the state specifically. I would blame it on them just being fucking useless.
A lot of societal problems, and one of the most important ones is education, or maybe
I want to see this
the
though.
lack thereof. And in particular, I'm talking about education and knowledge about politics and different political ideologies.
Что такое фашизм?
Фашизм?
Да.
Ну, я так полагаю, когда русские против немцев, наверное, нет, за немцев, наверное, выступают.
By the way, this also though, fun experiment to do is when you meet an anti-fascist IRL, ask them what fascism is. I did this when there were protests in Serbia. There were people who were pissed off about the fact that some people in the crowd had Ukrainian flags. And they tried to say that the problem with having Ukrainian flags, with waving them around Serbia during these protests, is that you are signaling that you're a fascist. And I was like, what is fascism then? Like, how do you define fascism if you think waving Ukrainian flags on a protest is fascism? Like, can you give me a definition? Not a single one of them could. And they give you broad answers. They're like, oh, well, if you don't know what's fascism, maybe you should Google instead of asking me. They can't define it. They don't know what it is. None of them know what it is. Or they will go, my favorite thing is that they will go to say that, how was that quote? My family has been bombed by NATO in 1999, so I know very well what is fascism. I don't need to explain it. Like, but they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Most people, you ask them what fascism is, what any of these things are really. When they talk about like the woke, ask them how they would define it. When they talk about, like here, for example, I'm hearing more and more young people mention Jordan Peterson's thing with like neoliberal worldviews. Ask them how they would define it. Either like neoliberalism or just like the worldview of neoliberalism. How would you define it? It's a great conversation to attempt to have, because what you will figure out is that they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just using these talking points. They hated Russia, but kept going all the Russia talking points about the war. When I sent them proof, Russia stole children from Ukraine, they stopped replying to me. Yeah, shit, every single time. Every single fucking time. Oh, I hate Russia, and I actually hate what that country has turned into. Oh, we are doing such a great job in Ukraine, actually, though. And I don't think we should be losing in Ukraine. I think we should win. And also, Putin is a good leader, and a lot of Russians support him. Like, them versus us thing. Like in their view, Russia cannot be fascist because they paint themselves as the anti-fascist country. Yeah, that's how it seems to me too. Yeah. It is very much. By the way, talking about this, I had something. Oh, did I send it to Discord? I think I sent it to Discord. But we mentioned Tito splitting up from USSR recently, right? When Tito split up from USSR, they represented Tito as a fascist. They represented him as a Nazi. They unironically do use it as a way to say that everyone against us is a Nazi and everyone supporting us is automatically not Nazi. Hey, I found the link. It was this one. They painted him as a Nazi. A man who literally did war crimes, killing Nazis. A man who led the partisan movement to get rid of Nazi influence in Balkans. They painted him as a Nazi because he dared to step away from USSR area of influence. Come on. It was such a stupid propaganda point to take. Such a bullshit thing to do. Which reminds me that I wanted to ask. If we get some Russians in chat, I'll have to ask their opinions on Tito. Yeah, I know what Bleiburg is. I know what Bleiburg is. That's why I would call him a war criminal, you know? It's like, like, my man literally, not only did he kill Nazis, so he killed Nazis, he killed people who were Nazi adjacent, and then they just killed like a bunch of randoms who just were in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was no trial. There was no trial. They just went in and killed a bunch of people, not knowing how affiliated they were with Nazis. They just killed them because they saw all of them as Nazis. And then you paint him as a Nazi? Communist, kinda. He was, I would maybe even say that he was, like, ideologically a communist. I guess I would say it, yeah. We did have a communist party and everything, so yeah, he saw himself as communist. Were we proper at reaching communism? I don't really know. I know that we did have, one of the reasons for our split is that we tried to go similar direction to USSR, but then when we were faced with the threat of a famine happening, we got a lot of help from the West to not have our people starve to death. And this is kind of what pushed Yugoslavia more towards the Western countries. Didn't have a body count. Yeah, that's true. Pukovnik in Ustaše, he wasn't a war criminal. I still have his picture, but he was killed there. Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, if you had any sort of connections, you would be killed there, and that was it. It doesn't matter what you were. It doesn't matter how connected you were. It doesn't matter what your personal views were, what your beliefs were, what crimes you were involved in, what crimes you were not involved in. You were just killed. You were just fucking killed at Bleiburg regardless. IMF loan, yeah, and then die. Far left Nazi or communist or socialist SSDD. I feel like you could even, I don't know, if you're a proper left, you could like take some socialist ideas and actually have a reasonable world building plans of it. But I just don't know, for anything is like weird.
Here's the thing, if you go to Russia and if you talk to an average Ivan and ask him what fascism or Nazism or democracy is, a lot of the times that person is not going to be able to give you a straightforward, coherent response. And there are some reasons for that. The first one is the lack of education about this stuff in schools in Russia or the poor quality of the education. And the second is Russian propaganda, which on one hand basically dehumanizes different politicians and countries that oppose Russia by essentially calling them Nazis and fascists and throwing all these big words around.
Слава Украине! Не хватает только и было зигануть, щелкнуть каблуками, кричать «Слава Украине! Ай, слава я!»
While at the same time promoting a general aloofness in the Russian people, essentially telling people that if they want to live a normal life, they should stay out of politics, they should not involve themselves in political life, they should really not muddle up their head with all these nonsensical ideologies and terms, because what is that for a regular layman anyway, right? So the people in the higher-ups, they know what they're doing and they've got everything under control. And as a result of this, simple terms in language that describe political leanings and ideologies and concepts essentially start becoming absolutely meaningless words in Russian. Hello Blazers, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian. How you guys doing today? Welcome to a brand new video, and in today's video guys, we're going to be talking about how Russians who don't get a lot of great education and who watch a lot of propaganda end up essentially not knowing absolutely anything about politics, and yet are basing their entire worldview and their entire view of the West and Ukraine and other countries based off of those buzzwords that they hear on TV, and yet they have absolutely no idea
he just makes me angry.
Essentially guys, we're going to be reacting to some really good street interviews in Russia that just show that the average vatnik clearly has absolutely no idea what they're talking about about 99.9% of the time. And before we get into this, here's the thing. My point with this video is not to make the point that Russians are somehow like a dumb nation of people who don't know anything. I honestly think that most people in the world, in most countries, are complete idiots. Not me, of course, guys. Not you guys watching this video. You know, we, of course, are gonna exclude ourselves from that list. But yeah, people are absolutely stupid, and, you know, there's no shortage of, for example, street interviews in America where people are just asked the most basic things, like to name a country in Europe, and they can't even do that. You know, in America, you also have whatever this is.
Leave Americans alone.
Political ideology and movement characterized by dictator leadership, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition. So I don't know what that means, right? I swear to God. I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, so you know, every single person in order to be a decent person or whatever has to know the textbook definition of fascism or something. However, once again, if your country is acting out of pockets and you choose to side with your country and your main reason is that, you know, everybody in Ukraine and in the West are all fascists and Nazis, you might need to know what these words actually mean. I actually want to start out with a lighthearted one that I think a lot of you guys are actually going to enjoy, so let's check that out.
Здрасте, можно вам задать вопрос? Как вы относитесь к людям с гетеросексуальной ориентацией?
Отрицательно.
Отрицательно, конечно. Почему? Должно быть все это. Что? Ну, наши, как называется? Вера и традиции. А гетеросексуалы, они нашей вере не отвечают?
So yes, guys, you already know what this is going to be. This is basically going to be where a guy basically goes on the street in Russia and asks people what they think about heterosexuals. And guys, unsurprisingly, most people's, cognitive ability just shuts off when they hear anything that ends with the word sexual, because the homophobic propaganda in Russia has been working non-stop for the past 20 years. These people are so indoctrinated and so uneducated that they assume that heterosexual means gay.
To be fair, like, it wasn't there like a street interview in USA which was the same thing and they gave the same responses? Because I was pretty sure there was. I was pretty sure I saw like at least clips of it previously. Nazi is used a lot for enemy or bad guy, semi-detached from fascism and the Third Reich. It reminds me of, I think it was one of the first interviews Anastasia did with Destiny, in which she asked him like, why are people saying things are Nazi when things are not Nazi? You know, why do you use Nazi to just mean a bad guy I dislike? Because there's really no in so many cases that it has been used towards Ukrainians, it was just used to describe, for example, people who are just nationalistic. It wasn't even like describing someone with Nazi views. It was just someone being like, yeah, I fucking love my nation and I want to help defend it. And people are like, oh, this dude's a Nazi. How? And I remember Destiny gave a response which was like, oh yeah, Westerners just use the word Nazi because like Nazis are all they know. It's like the bad word that they know, so they use the bad word for everything they see as being against what they believe in. Like, oh, you are against my beliefs, so you're a bad person, so I'm gonna call you a Nazi because you're a bad person against my beliefs. But they don't really think too critically about why they're using it and for what.
Относитесь к людям с гетеросексуальной ориентацией?
Плохо, категорически отрицательно отношусь.
А как вы считаете, среди ваших знакомых есть ли люди с гетеросексуальной ориентацией?
Нет, нету.
Not a single one, dude. Not a single one.
Потому что я отношусь к таким людям как-то не...
Disgusting. Heterosexuals are disgusting.
Ну, лучше нормальный, когда, ёпта, бля, нормальный должен быть нахуй, бля. Чё, бля, эти ходят тут, блядь? Нормальные пусть будут нахуй, вот тогда, бля, и это, ёпта, нахуй. Is that Russophobic? Because I think that's biblophobic. Bidla is how you describe, like, uneducated people and gopniks and Russian shit. I don't know why I'm getting this pissed already, to be honest.
What is that word?
Ну, должны быть нормальные, не гетеросексуальные.
Is that like a same root from Budala? What is that word? Hey, yes, slippers. I'm actually ending the stream relatively soonish because I have to go to work. Like, we'll be here for around 15 minutes more, which is exactly how long it's gonna take for this video to end. And then I'm running. I'm not cisgender, I'm normal.
People can also never explain why they hate the people they hate because they don't know who they hate. They only know the
Wait, what was
that
that tweet?
The first channel feeds to them because their hate is completely manufactured. It's completely artificial, and it would not be here if not for a great propaganda.
Так как вы относитесь к гетеросексуалам?
Отрицательно.
А вы знаете, что это означает?
Примерно знаю, но не вникаю.
This one. Call me sis to my face and see what happens. Wait, where was I on this here?
I know you guys are just gonna be like,
Yeah,
Russian,
oh, farm animal.
Look, I've been living in Russia my whole life.
Nice.
This viewpoints of я не разбираюсь, не хочу знать, и мне вообще насрать, и моя хата с краю, и вообще я не такая. This is what Putin's regime stands on. You gotta understand that, right? People just don't want to know anything about anything, not only because their life is already filled with bullshit day to day, and they have to make ends meet and shit, but yes, the second reason also is because people don't want to know and they don't want to learn about this stuff because they feel as if they touch anything that's related to politics, or they learn anything related to politics, or they speak their mind out about anything related to politics, that will ruin their life. And they're not far off.
I don't think we have
especially in modern Russia. So it's this culture of this sort of apolitical style of life in Russia, and it's precisely where this authoritarianism comes from.
Alternative to that in Croatian.
Гетеросексуалам? Это, по-моему, нормальные мужчины, которые женщины, да, ведут половую жизнь.
Нормальные, бля, смуж женщины, ёпта, бля. I'm not even gay though. That's the thing. I'm getting pissed because I'm like actually educated to realize that you do not segregate people based on their sexual orientation. How can you live in a society that segregates people based on some innate things that we're born with and feel okay with yourself? I cannot comprehend it. And before we move on to the next video, I want to show you one more person from this.
We say it's like stalker.
Боже, меня храни от них. И всю нашу Россию-матушку православную.
Stalker.
И весь православный мир, и весь мир в целом. Спаси Господь помилуй.
Stalker. It's like this.
На самом деле я просто провожу социальный эксперимент, на самом деле.
А
Как вы
что
думаете,
нас в
среди...
России хотят ввести? Да не дай бог. На война, сразу будет война. Третья мировая война сразу будет. Если у нас в России это примут. Боже храни, господа. Мы на грани Третьей мировой войны. Если это примется в России, значит у нас будет сразу мировая...
I feel like this woman maybe should speak to her husband or whoever the fuck she has, maybe about some Russian military practices, maybe about some certain Russian traditions in military that have been around for decades and decades and decades since the ages of their grandparents. Maybe she would have some fun time.
война. Вы этого хотите, люди? Остановитесь.
What do I gotta say? Least schizo grandma watching First Channel Russia. I don't want to make fun of some old lady, but like this is precisely what happens when, you know, you don't have good enough contact with your family and you're only the only person you have conversations with is the TV. I mean, I've seen cases like this a lot of the time. Like these grandmas that just have like nobody in their life. They go deep into this shit, man. They're kind of like, you know, this is like Russian QAnon basically. It's just really scary, man.
Фашизм это такие, как это, не люди, то есть это которые убивают мирное население, которые не знают мира на земле.
I mean, look, she isn't wrong. Fascism is terrible and it's a disease on Earth. I thoroughly believe that. However, her first
he could have given props to that dude.
Where she says
For real.
that fascists are not human, they're not people. Here's the thing, I do really feel like in Russia, the way these things are taught in school regarding like fascism and, you know, this history of the Second World War and, you know, Nazi party in Germany and everything, it's almost like shown through this lens of like, look at, you know, how these, you know, Westoids got so ridiculous that they became, you know, fascists and, you know, they were basically inhuman and everything and we destroyed this evil, right? I would prefer if the coverage regarding this stuff in Russia would come from a different sort of tone where I don't think we need to dehumanize fascists in a way because, believe it or not, Nazis and Hitler were human. And pretty much every single human is capable of doing the exact same thing.
That's base.
So what we should be teaching kids, right, is what fascism really is, how to notice signs of it, and how to essentially stop your own society from succumbing into it. Because in Russia, it feels like a lot of the time, it starts in a way that's like, fascists were the terrible people, but we destroyed them, and we were not fascists, and we can never be fascists because we're fucking great. And fascists are basically, no, not human. No, I think everybody's capable of becoming a fascist. And sort of removing yourselves from that and saying, well, we beat the fascists. We could never, ever become like them. Because we are more human than them. I think that sort of point of view is precisely, you know, one of the reasons as well why, you know, Russia has become what it has become.
Yeah, I see that.
Не дают людям жить. Хорошо ведь спокойно, да, жить на солнышко, смотреть небо чисто. Красота. А фашизм это, конечно, убивали наших миллионы людей.
Again, I'm not trying to laugh at any of this. This is a serious subject matter. However, with the way many people in Russia are just educated, especially these boomers, fascism to them is nothing but the Nazi party in Germany. And that is a very, very stupid way to look at it. Because Russians have, I think, never truly realized that fascism will not fade away. And it has not faded away with the defeat of Nazi Germany.
Что такое фашизм? Фашизм? Да. Ну, я так полагаю, когда русские против немцев, наверное, нет, за немцев, наверное, выступают. Что-то типа такого? Я не знаю.
Yeah, guys, I mean, this is pretty much what I'm talking about in this video, right? When people say this, when asked what fascism is, do you really expect the average layman to, like, see through Russian propaganda when, you know, they're being told 24/7, day by day, in the background, it's being fucking shoved in their ears that Ukrainians or the West, whatever, they're all Nazis and fascists? Do you think people are really going to be able to see through that when they have no education? And
to be fair, though, I don't think the problem... I agree it wasn't not really it wasn't smart, because they did use them in a way to get a lot of advancements, right? So I guess they were like, pros and cons, as long as we don't allow them to like politically influence the people, maybe it's gonna be alright. I don't really think the problem arose from allowing all the taking the smart Nazis among themselves and then pushing them into research posts or whatever the fuck, depending on which ones we are specifically talking about, right? I don't think this is where the problem started. I think the problem starts with the population and the way that we can use national memories of our countries in order to start fascism, right? Because like usually one of the things I think is really important to talk about is the democratization of society, so we never turn into a society quite like Russia. And one thing that is really important to point out in this whole path of the democratization is the fact that it's very, very easy for your country to turn fascist if you're not paying enough attention, right? So things like, I don't know, even if you look at Croatia, for example, which is an example that I know the most about because I am from here. So what we have is our politicians very often trying to hide their corruption scandals with trying to blame someone else for it. So they will be trying to blame the Romani people, they will be trying to blame the Serbs. They will always be trying to blame someone else. They're not trying to blame the West. Recently, we had huge corruption scandals. You know who they are blaming for the corruption scandals? The fact that a lot of immigrants came to our country because these immigrants were pushed in by European Union. So the corruption scandals, not even done by European Union parliament members, but the corruption scandals should be blamed on Croatian European Union parliament members because they are pushing in so many refugees into Croatia and destroying our economy. It's a stupid, stupid way to look at it. We had a situation recently where few Croatians went into African countries to adopt children. And it was later learned that one of these Croatians is a trans person. And then they started blaming trans people for like child trafficking. It made no sense. It just made no fucking sense. We got investigative journalist pieces pointing out how Croatian courts do give you papers unfairly. So like there are certain African countries for which you cannot legally adopt children. But there are some Croatian courts which will sign the paperwork anyways, regardless. They are very corrupt and they will make it as if you legally adopted these children anyways. And you know who people blamed? Not the court people, who we had names on. We have identities of the judges who do this. No, they didn't blame them. They blamed the trans people. So it's very easy, like you allow this sort of an opinion to fester, and then it's going to get too strong in one direction. You will be very, very easily pushing your country into some very problematic actions, right? Which is why you need to make sure that your country is very democratic, that your people are aware of the power they have, that they're all being constantly educated on what the fuck is going on. It's very, very easy to go down the fascist route, absolutely. Incredibly hard time actually getting power. Oh, I do agree with that. It's going to be very unlikely that we ever reach fascism, definitely. But I think going in that direction itself is problematic enough, especially if you don't see it. You know, if you don't pay attention to it. Like, take Belarus as an example. Lukashenko, who got chosen as the president, right? And then he stayed in power for a bit more. And then he stayed in power for a bit more. And now you can't get rid of him. In a society in which people are aware of their power and in which people are aware of how important democracy is, they would not be allowing him to hoard the power for such a long time. But they're allowing it. Look at Hungary, for example. Look at Orban hoarding the power, and look at what he is allowing his own party to do and not allowing to opposition parties. Also, like, you're going down the path. You're not a fascist country. I don't know if I would call them a fascist country. In the same way, I don't know if I would call Poland a fascist country. But, like, you are going in the direction, and the population must be aware of this. And what we are seeing is that when you try to point out these issues to their population, what do you have a lot of them respond? You have them respond, oh, we're not fascist, actually. That is just how people call us because we don't like LGBT. Oh, we're not fascist, actually. That is just how people want to insult us because we don't want a lot of immigrants in our countries. You know, they will blame the traditional values. They will blame not liking the Western stances on things for them being called fascist instead of actually noticing the problems in their own country. So you're kind of going down the direction. I do think in both of these, maybe in Hungary, I'm a bit more on the verge of that because their democracy seems to be crumbling. I think Polish democracy may still be going better. We will see. But, you know, it's like, yeah, with the Polish Russian asset law, actually, I'm like a bit sus on that too. But, you know, like, they're using these talking points in order to bring attention away from their governments trying to hoard power and trying to blame a group of people, a minority, for everything bad happening in the country. Moment of regime that exalts nation and often raises above the individual and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader. Severe economic and social regimentation and forcible suppression of opposition. Yeah. Hard to reach it, but like, you could be going down in direction and you need to be aware of what your government is doing and what talking points they're using for it. Full democracy? Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely.
And they're brainwashed day to day. I don't think so.
Что такое фашизм?
Гитлер капут, немцы.
И все?
Look, guys, it gets harder and harder to defend the Russian nation on this channel while watching videos like this.
Yeah.
That's to God. I'm trying my hardest right now.
Собственную нацию считают превыше,
Okay.
Deutschland über alles.
Okay.
Украинцы считают, что они основа основ всей цивилизации.
They don't.
This was back in 2019, by the way, right? So this is just a person whose brain has been fried after 5 years of, propaganda telling them that there's Nazis in Ukraine, because that never existed until 2014, 2013.
Преподносят так, что
They don't.
украинцы
What?
это основа.
Переписывают историю, получается.
Сами Черное море выкопали, вырыли. Вот.
Блять, какую-то хуйню с РЕН-ТВ просто. Это просто пиздец. Вот что у наших людей в головах? Я...
What is РЕН-ТВ?
Ну, я думаю, это которые вообще беспредельничают. Фашисты. Ну, я не знаю, кто такие фашисты.
I agree, it could be democratic.
Ну, говорят, страшные люди.
I think, like
Again,
in
I don't know
Hungary,
who
for
fascists
example,
are.
what
I
you're
did not fight
saying
the war.
is
That's what she's
it
saying.
being
So she's
democratic.
talking about World War II. There's such a lack of knowledge within like the layman of Russia that fascism is like a term that describes an extreme right-wing ideology. To a lot of people, fascists are literally just, soldiers from World War II. I understand that the trauma created by World War II in the Soviet Union was absolutely insane. I get it. But like you have to know you have to know these basic things, man.
Фашисты для меня это те, которые забыли, что такое Великая Отечественная война на сегодняшний день. Забыли, что наша страна была пролита кровью. И очень обидно за это.
I wonder if she was shading Ukraine here, because she probably was, right? She's like, because 2014, that's the time when Russian propaganda really started, working its anti-Ukrainian magic, where they basically started saying that, there are Nazis there, and also they deny that our people, fought in World War II and did like a good thing. They're denying our history as well, so fuck them. That's pretty much what has been going on in Russian TV for the last 10 years at this point. So here's the thing, right? So once again, I'm not trying to show myself
Not
being
really
like
a
superior to
functioning
these
one.
people
Yeah,
or something,
I can
because
see that.
the truth is, when I graduated school, I don't think I also knew a lot about what like fascism and what's liberalism or conservatism or whatever, about what these things really are.
Really
I don't think
reminds
I
me
did.
of
And I
like
had, really, really good grades in social studies.
Turkey
in
and
Russia,
Hungary,
okay?
right?
Like, on my
I
shit
believe
in
they do
studying
have.
school, I was, like,
It's
a
a
really good
failed
student. However,
democracy,
having
but it
graduated
is some
school,
form
I
of
don't
it,
really
right?
think I had the basis that actually makes me understand like the political coordinates and what the left and the right means. I didn't know shit, man. Like for example, in 2016, I remember when the entire Trump election was going on, and the internet was going through this insane anti-GW phase. I remember at that time I was already sort of liking Russian opposition, like Navalny, for example, who always are called liberals in Russia, and they refer to themselves as liberals as well. However, back then I was like a red pill, like MAGA type idiot, So I also hated liberals in the West because in the West they describe anybody that's in the
yeah,
Democratic
liberal
Party as
democracy
liberal, right?
makes
So,
sense.
and back then I remember I was confused because I was like, okay, why do I support liberals in Russia but not liberals in America? And so I started like trying to compare the ideologies, and I just understood that these labels that are given to people in these countries make no fucking sense all of the time, and they actually do not correlate with the people's actual political beliefs. It probably took me like 1.5 years to realize that liberals are not a left-wing ideology. And I think my entire world was fucking blown when I realized that liberals were not left-wing. And coming out of school in Russia at 17 years old, I don't think I could actually give you an honest and proper definition of what fascism is, for example, if you'd ask me. So yeah, it either shows that I'm an idiot, or that there is a problem with education in Russia regarding this. And honestly, in Russia, throughout my whole life, I've just been talking to people, to my family members, and to random people I meet, girls, for example, whatever. And I just start realizing how the average person in Russia doesn't know fuck about political ideologies and like what certain terms mean. And I think that is absolutely deliberately done by the Russian government in order to make people just brainless sheeple that just follow buzzwords that the governmental propaganda throws around. And it's kind of the same in America in a sense as well, right? So when people they throw out these buzzwords around at the same time, most of them don't even make any sense anymore. Conservatives are like calling Joe Biden a radical left-wing president. Socialists get called liberal and all this shit. I mean, it makes no sense at this point. So I'm just really, really tired, man.
Демократия, по вашему мнению, что это такое?
Ну, если брать классический пример, когда демократия возникла, то демократия это власть народа.
Власть народа.
Обман людей, демократия это придуманное понятие, американское понятие, которое привели. Я считаю, что это обман, ЛГБТ поведение. Это разве это демократия, мне кажется?
Yes, guys, we've met propaganda brain right here. This is him. Because people before were saying, normal things, but this guy's immediate reaction to the word democracy is, it's all bullshit created by the West in America. It's all just LGBT and whatever. This is not, это ненормальное поведение, ёпта, бля, короче, нахуй. Чё, бля, демократия какая-то, демократия, ёпта. But anyway, yeah, this is propaganda brain. When the word democracy is mentioned, your immediate response is like to start saying that it's a fake buzzword invented by Americans. Cool. Democracy is originally an American invention, yes, and the word is American too. The American language, guys, the fabled language from thousands of fucking centuries ago. And he also doesn't support LGBTE rights.
Every country, yeah. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that will be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender.
That's why it's
and
important to like
educated, which this guy is not. So that is why he doesn't
be aware of how dangerous this is, right?
Я вам хочу сказать, свобода слова, свобода
Like you
мысли,
gotta
свобода
work
есть,
on,
люди выражают, как хотят, и культура,
at least on a small scale, you gotta work on ensuring
I wish
people
my brain was
around
that
you are
small,
not
really.
fucking
I wish
idiots.
I really didn't have to think and I just live my life like this guy. And, you know, in a country where freedom of speech and freedom of expression is the freedom of speech to regurgitate the shit that you heard on TV. That's great. I just don't think that I want to exist in that society, to be honest. I really don't.
Наверное, либералом.
Почему?
Ну, потому что надо что-то менять уже в этой стране. Мы не должны сидеть в болоте 20-летнем, понимаете? И постоянно менять правителей, чтобы они не успевали воровать.
Wow, okay, I think we're gonna end on that note, to be honest. One actually, like, sane person. Okay, one person I agree with. I'm also saying, like, the people that
Also,
don't
I have
shit,
to leave,
they're
like,
also just as
now.
human. There are reasons that they have or, you know, don't have certain opinions. But the point of this video was to show you guys that a lot of Russians have no fucking clue what anything means, and as a result, the Russian propaganda finds it absolutely insanely easy to convince them that, you know...
Basically, I know which route he's going down for, but I need to leave, so I'm gonna give you a speedrun, okay? If you know how we often talk about, like, Russian collective responsibility, and I fully stand behind that. I fully stand behind Russian collective responsibility for this war. I fully stand behind the idea that they all are responsible for allowing the governments to reach this situation. What you have to understand that this is like this is a view I think you should also apply to yourself in your own country. Okay? So, like, people around you who are voters, especially, who have an influence on the country, they are likely the ones allowing it to go down this direction. What are you doing to try and help about this? What are you trying to do? Are you, like, actually able to have serious conversations with these people? Are you able to point out some problematic stuff in your government? Are you able to do anything? Are you actually being involved? Like, it's very, very important to notice these issues before you reach the point of no return, right? Like, for example, Russians in 2012, I truly think, like, 2012 was their last time to actually be able to make, like, a strong change, because the anti-Putin protests had really, really strong support back then. Really strong for Russians. Like, for the rest of the world, it was tiny little protests. But listen, for Russians, it was at least something, okay? They had a chance to change it. But the thing is that a lot of people in the country saw, you know, the state of Russia at the time, and they were like, no, this is actually, like, okay-ish, this is okay-ish. So they weren't paying attention to Putin grabbing more and more power. They were just like, yeah, this is fine, this is fine. And this is fine mindset, it allowed for Putin to start the full-scale invasion in 2022. And this is fine mindset would likely bring your country in the same situation too, if you remain complicit with whatever the fuck is going on, especially if whatever the fuck you have going on is, you know, a situation like in Hungary or in Turkey, for example, which I do see as the biggest problems right now. So, yeah, be fucking careful over this, okay? I have to end the stream now. I have to drive to work. So I will be seeing you all on Monday, hopefully in this time, by the way, hopefully. I still don't know enough about my work time, but next week I should be working afternoon shifts, apart from Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm hopefully going to be able to stream in, like, normal time. So I'm very, very happy about that. So I'm running to go to work right now. Stay strong, eat something healthy, drink enough water. And yeah, I'll be seeing you Monday.